so and something.
That's still a good time.
Jimmy's out.
Cheers, lads.
Do I go now?
Yep.
Oh god, that mashing. Oh boy, he went.
All right, hey guys.
Hello.
It is time for lightning returns. We have ArisCarroll on Team Mog starting up now, and
Hello.
SephorianBlue hanging out with us here as well, getting ready for Team Choco. My name is Coney93. I'm one of the commentators.
And I'm Sent. I'm going to be your other commentator. So, Lightning Returns is a little bit different than the other games in the Final Fantasy XIII series. It's a bit more of an action RPG, if you will. It has timed hits, timed blocks, a little bit more control of your character while they're just waiting around between fights. And we're going to see that right away here during this sort of tutorial area where you need to clear all of these enemies to open the door. Ideally, we're going to see our runners here get a few timed lightning strikes on these niblets, because I believe that reduces the amount of lightnings you need to hit them with by 1.
Yes, it does.
It does. And they're going to want to take them in a specific order, too, because of how the enemies reset after each one of the fights. If you get them in the wrong order, one of the niblets just likes to be halfway across the room. You'll notice they're starting every fight by hitting the enemies. By initiating the combat, you can get a good, which reduces their health by 10%, or an excellent if they're completely unaware of you, which reduces their health by 20%. Running into them normally just starts the fight regularly, and if they hit you, you're going to start the fight at a disadvantage. A disadvantage, which is something we really never want to see throughout the run.
As far as overworld movement goes, this game, for some reason, decided to put in a sprint stamina meter. So that's the blue bar at the bottom there. You basically never want to let it run all the way out, or you have to walk waiting for it to fill up slower than if you just release it just before it ends there.
Yeah, you also need the stamina bar to swing your weapon in the overworld. So if you run out of stamina, you can't initiate fights either.
I've never seen this fight without Onion Knight activating Shiva there.
I've never seen that either. So yes, guess that's going for me.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best, Sephorian. So just you wait.
Okay, we have the Japanese audio I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Because Hope likes to talk a lot in this game, and get a little bit grating at times.
I'm sorry, Koinu. It's the superior audio. I gotta agree with Eris here.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. I just
English would drive me
something about it. I
crazy.
just can't. For anyone who's familiar with the 13 story, things start to get really wonky by the time this game has come around. You'll notice that anyone who's played 13-2, Hope was an adult and carrying the world into the future. But for some odd reason, here we are with Child Hope yet again.
It's because of Ultimis, yeah, time compression and all.
Absolutely.
So who are the commentators already for Lightning Returns?
Oh
I
shit.
heard Koyu and I didn't hear the other one.
Sent.
Oh, so is it the actual matchup for one of the games later on?
Yes.
Yeah, we're actually the Type 0 runners, so we'll be on again after Final Fantasy IX.
You should take that opportunity to trash talk each other. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, we would, but I don't need to. My gameplay will do that by itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can't really argue. I'm just gonna put up the best fight I possibly can.
And suddenly I feel good being in Sen's team.
Yeah, so right there, the first boss fight just kind of went by really fast. You'll notice there was a point where Eris was quickly spamming attacks on the enemy. That's a mechanic called overclock, which is just the ability to hit the enemy as many times as possible before they can hit you back, doing a good chunk of damage. Overclock spends what are they? Are they EP points? It's something. I don't remember exactly what they're called. You'll see in the bottom left of the screen there's a a number surrounded by a yellow meter, and that's basically how many points you get. You refill that meter by winning battles, so this entire route is based around restoring the meter enough that you can have overclocks for the fights you need them.
So yeah, you see here on Leo's screen how annoying this map can be, because not only is the Onion Knight dodging the energy rains, he's also dodging the pillars, making him pretty particularly annoying to touch.
Yeah.
Okay, in chat it's confirmed it is EP. I thought so, wasn't sure.
I did too, but it's been so long since I looked at what the acronym actually was.
Yep.
So here, Eris is going to learn the most important EP ability in the game, Escape. Because frankly, we have no time for this tutorial or any other random battle. We're just gonna leave. Escaping isn't free in normal mode though, despite having a 0 EP cost. It's going to cost an hour of his time when he's down in the world. And the way Lightning returns is it's kind of on a clock cycle. You have a certain number of days to finish all of the major objectives in the game to unlock the end game. And you get a little bit more time every time you defeat one of the major bosses of the game. You have until 6 a.m. every day, at which point you'll be forcibly transported back to the hub. And certain events and certain NPCs are only available at certain times of the day. So a lot of the run is routed around sleeping until certain times to trigger certain events, doing things in very specific orders in order to, get as much done in one day as possible. And there are plenty of days where you do have maybe an extra hour or two if you need to run away from a battle, but some days are very tightly routed, so hopefully we won't see too many random encounters.
So what Leo just did on the previous battle was a chase mode bravery trap kill. You see here on the Final Fantasy V map at the bottom you have this kind of sky, but if you touch that kind of bottom limits, you will have this kind of blackish orb surrounding you, and that if you stay close to that limit, you will be teleported to a place where you can stand and losing bravery. You can, through the chase mode with the bravery attacks, launch an enemy to that kind of weird warp area. And the funny thing is that the AI has no ability to dodge whatsoever in that state when the black orb is appearing. So what you can do is build bravery, launch the enemy into this warp state, and then press square to finish the fight, because the enemy will never dodge it. However, something that is interesting to know is that if the enemy by chance launches you into this warp state through chase mode, you can dodge, but the AI cannot.
So what Eris is doing right now is the game forcibly makes you take on this first quest, where they want you to solve the mystery of why these people are being murdered. But frankly, we don't have time for any of this, so we're just going to attack the guards a few times to make them hostile, get into fights with them, leave the fights with them to skip enough time that the quest just auto-completes, and then go to sleep.
And this is something only doable in normal mode because of that time pressing ahead when you escape a battle. In easy, you are forced to finish main quest 1, which is just running around, and it's like a giant fetch quest, basically, just picking stuff up and dropping it off.
I'm going to be entirely honest, Koinu, I've never actually finished this quest.
There you go. Yeah, it's literally just, you go and you look at some pamphlets and you talk to a guard and you have to find Holmes and bring him to his friend because Holmes is too scared. It's just a giant fetch quest.
So level 43, we're going to buy a lot of stuff here, making the most of our money. We have a small bonus, so we have here, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a blue 1.5 bonus. So those are the notes, the random notes that I mentioned that you can have luckily. And here we're going to buy the new highest tiered weapon that we can equip, which is the Estoc. And also the Force Shield, because as I mentioned earlier, if you can afford through the level a shield here on this fight, and especially on Chaos, I highly suggest that you do, because you can really get wrecked. And here Leo just equipped or activated one of those bravery to HP trees abilities that I mentioned earlier. So we'll see if we get to see the quick hit in action. A deep breath, and here we go.
I love my notes. Use the Mazer Eye if possible. I didn't get it.
So Lightning just woke up, and we're going to sleep for a couple hours. With Lightning Returns, we have a certain number of, obviously, main objectives. Like we said, you have to finish before God decides to destroy the world. And for this, it doesn't really matter what order you do them in. It's kind of hinted the way the game wants you to do them, and some are going to be easier than others, but you kind of have to adjust your time to complete different objectives kind of at the same time. So now we're leaving the Luxarian and moving on to Euston, which is the city where Snow resides.
We started the game there before he kicked us out of his castle and went to go cry in his room. Lightning Returns at its core is basically about Lightning beating up all of her friends because they're being very depressed.
Yes. Especially for the speed run. As far as stats and increasing your character's strength go in Lightning Returns, every quest you do gives you stats. So there are tons of side quests, and you'll get like magic and items and things to help you out. We don't have time for the other side beings in this game. We just help our friends. No one else needs any help.
Yeah. It is worth mentioning, though, about that. Quests are the only way to get stats aside from equipment. Random battles only reward you with EP, so that you can use more of those EP abilities every day. You cannot grind any harder to get things. And here, Lightning's going to run around and talk to some chocobo ladies to get some fireworks for later. Unfortunately, we skipped the cutscene where they make her say meow meow choco chow, but because that cutscene is amazing.
That reminds me of a certain event hosted on that channel. Really. I don't know if Takaze is here, but he's responsible for that. Oh,
So,
seems alright. Nothing
At that shop, sorry. At that shop, we're selling a few things, and we're picking up a new garb, Velvet Bouncer. So we haven't really talked about garbs at all, but in this game, garbs are kind of your general purpose equipment, I guess. You can equip up to 3 of them at once, and in battle, you can switch between them freely. Each has its own action gauge, and you can bind different abilities to them. But some of them also come with their own stats or even their own pre-bound abilities. So there we picked up the Velvet Bouncer garb, which comes with a plus 80 to strength, which is pretty massive this early on in the game, especially when we haven't done any side quests. And it also comes with Blitz, which is a powerful AoE ability that we can guard cancel to do a lot of DPS with.
And guard canceling, what that is specifically, it'll be a lot easier to see, especially with that Blitz attack, because normally after you do 3 blitzes in a row, there's a pretty big wind up before Lightning will do another attack, but we just kind of skip that by doing the guards.
An important caveat to mention about overclock as well earlier is that when you overclock, you actually get a completely separate resource bar that any of your garbs can use to take actions, and your normal garbs refill their resource during the overclock. So a bit later, we're going to see a lot of just chaining overclocks, hitting maybe once or twice out, and then chaining overclocks again to just completely decimate enemies.
Yeah, so here we have more of the multitasking, and we got a couple of fireworks, but at this time of day, there's not really much else we can do. We're going to go back to Luxarian and continue that subplot. All right, so we're supposed to stealthily follow behind these guys and figure out what they're doing, but that's slow. So we run up and we beat the crap out of them.
Meanwhile, I'm using the deck shot. I don't know if anyone is interested, but...
I was going to mention this. So we learned a new ability at level 42, 45, I don't remember. A new HP attack for Tidus, which is the deck shot. It has much better range than Energy Rain. In terms of startup frames, it's kind of the same, but it's much more usable and much more convenient to use than Energy Rain.
Also, I completely messed up the fight.
Ah, that's okay. You got the good luck, though. Sometimes with those disciples, you'll finish the fight, and for some reason, some of them remain behind.
Well, some did remain behind, but sometimes works.
It's based on which one you start the fight with. Ideally, you want to start the fight with the one that has the golden exclamation point over his head, but I think there are like a group of 3 that work.
Fuck.
Ooh, yeah, it looks like he Eris didn't kill the disciple he needed to, so he's gonna
Yeah.
have to go back and take him out.
I jinxed it.
is-
I shouldn't have said anything.
No, it's fine. I was just thinking if reloading was faster, but I don't know where auto was. God damn it.
Yeah, I don't know where the nearest autosave was. It might be here at the start of Yusnan. This fight's gonna be a little different without having an overclock to spend on them, though.
And here we saw the first instance of Quick Hit. So one of the strengths of Tidus is that he has some of his moves that have a dodge built in the animation. So here we saw Tidus kind of make a flip, throw the cattle bog down, and then perform the Quick Hit. Those are those bravery to HP combos that I mentioned earlier, where you simply need to connect with the bravery attack and then press square, and automatically Tidus will follow up with the HP attack. And we're starting the final
Oh
chapter
my
of the
God.
game.
Yeah.
As I
Knowing that
mentioned in the
everything
chat, we didn't get invisible or jump, so we'll have to perform a fight against the Cloud of Darkness, and then run away from the fight against Cyclops. Absolutely, so we can use this for Chaos. Optimally, you want your EX gauge filled.
And I
So
got the
you,
Mizorize, so I'm gonna be able to lower his HP.
absolutely. So we're gonna use this fight against the Cloud of Darkness to fill our EX gauge, so we don't have to fill it during the fight.
So what just happened there was Eris went and talked into a phone booth because we're trying to follow those disciples, and they asked for a passcode, which we obviously don't have in normal. We do go around and we try and get that passcode in easy. Overclock only costs 1 EP point, and because of that, it's much easier to spam. So we just force our way through and have to fight a dreadnought. Unfortunately, no such luck with normal, at least not yet. Maybe someday.
I mean, we're gonna put "find the code" in as many quotation marks as possible.
Well, yeah,
because we find one number of the 4-number code and just kind of play the odds.
Depends on how brave you're feeling. I sometimes will go for 3 if I need to.
What, 3?
I was not good at this category.
Okay. I mean, 2 should be the max.
Yeah, I don't even know where the third one is. I'm gonna be honest.
Same.
So there, Eris picked up the Magician's Token. The Magician's Token is an accessory that's going to give you 10% increased magic damage, which is going to be super useful. So for most of the game, our basic garb setup is we are going to have a physical oriented garb, a magical oriented garb, and a debuff oriented garb. Towards the end of the game, we'll be swapping that last one for another physical oriented garb. Here's our first interaction with the Chaos. It makes enemies aggressive, but it also doubles their drop rates. We're going to need that later, but for now, we're just going to run through it because we don't care about anything these enemies could possibly drop. Eris does need to make sure he picks up a soul seed, though, to complete a later quest. I have had several runs fail because I forgot to pick up a soul seed at any point in the run, and the quest will not continue if you do not trade at least one seed.
Alright, let's go for the fight.
Luckily, there's plenty of opportunities. You just have to remember to take them.
If
the hell was
Sephorian is
this?
still here,
Did you see that, guys?
right, give the time.
Yeah, so get ready for the time.
You got this, Leo.
So we'll see what he opens with. Flame Pillar, so just need to find an opening. And then, unfortunately, Tidus, out of all of the Cosmos characters, has probably the weakest matchup against Chaos. Most of the other characters have a way to loop him. Unfortunately for Leo, it's not the case with Tidus. So we will be relying, for the most part, on Hot Step to perform chase mode and then go along with it.
There, we just picked up the Passion Rogue outfit. That's going to become, I believe, our debuffing outfit. It has D-Shell and D-Protect along with it.
Passion Rouge, please.
Rouge, I know.
So something that we didn't mention earlier is the fact that when you launch an enemy with your bravery or HP attacks, you're performing impact damage. And this is particularly important for HP attacks because if, let's say, you do an attack that deals 1000 points of HP damage, but that impacts the enemy on the wall or on the ground or on the ceiling, you will do an additional 500 points of damage. So here, maximizing the impact damage here will be very important for the fight against Chaos.
Oh no.
Platforming the ultimate endgame in Lightning Returns.
Okay. So unfortunately, we didn't get the impact because it was too high. It's not too bad. We can simply dodge. Our base bravery should go high enough for us to perform the kill as soon as possible. Okay, perfect. So first phase is down. Second phase, as I mentioned, he learns a new bravery ability. He did the same move as he did in the first phase, so that's a good indication that he will do the flame pillar on phase 3. As you saw here, Chaos, sorry, he just started to cast his Demon Dance, but Hot Step has so few frames of startup that that Leo managed to catch the attack before he was actually started. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Like, if I'm talking and you need to go, feel free to immediately cut me off. With this, it's just a sign of normal percent's tight day routing. If he gets caught by a single enemy here, it's going to ruin everything. Because it's 4 a.m., you'll notice, and once it hits 6 a.m., we are forced to go back to the Ark, and it could cause some major problems. Ooh, that was a close one. Yeah, those Mayonectins especially, it's incredibly hard to kill them with where we're at
There's
right
no
now.
way you're gonna kill them with that setup.
Yeah, I was gonna say there are a couple of fights in Desert 1 that you can take. The Mayonectin is not one. You have no hope. You gotta
I knew
reroute.
it. I knew it.
Nice, good job. Okay. So good use of Behemoth there, and then final phase we have our X Gauge. That's a nice EX card, so something that I didn't mention. When turning to EX,
Come on.
you have invulnerability frames that are absolute. It's like the Omni card
Sephorian, get ready.
of Jack. We get ready for time, and that was like a very clean fight for Chaos. So good job.
And time, Sephorian, you can go all out.
All right.
Good job.
GG, Leo.
Good job, Leo.
135, that wasn't too bad.
Yep. All right, everyone. Enjoy Lightning Returns. Bye bye. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck.
So if you skip the cutscenes, the text boxes on these teleports too fast, they might port you to the wrong place or just leave you where you started.
Yeah, there's something strange about them, but if you like mash through them too hard, sometimes you'll teleport to exactly where you are, but still take the full loading screen, and it's horrible.
I have never had that happen before. Huh.
That's because you're not fast enough.
I'll say, is it too fast or not fast enough? Which one is it?
Yeah.
It's one of those double-edged swords.
Exactly.
But so Aris here is just going down into the depths of this tomb to retrieve the first tablet. We're gonna have to get 3 of them over the course of the run before we can finish the desert area's main quest. And the easiest thing to do here is to hit these statues, which are actually enemies, run from the fight, and then hey, 6 a.m., time to go.
Yeah, that's actually something that is going to be kind of abused. Like the timing in certain dungeons is going to be specifically run to progress time, which is a luxury that normal has compared to easy, where you have to actually just sit there and wait sometimes. And Sephorian starting the pursuit of our angsty boy, Snow.
So the other use we have for EP is we can actually use it before a day starts to buy some items from Snow. Not Snow, from Hope. I wish we could buy items from Snow, but Snow just kind of sits in his room crying for most of the game. For the most part, we're going to be buying Warriors and Heroes potions to give us combinations of Brave, Haste, and Faith a little bit later into the game. And we'll just basically be buying them on any day when we don't really plan to use too many overclocks, which take 2 EP each, or teleports, which take 3 EP each.
And Sephorian will be coming up to it soon on the first day. Earlier, we actually purchased a bunch of items specifically so you spend EP to get them, but then when you sell them, you get back gil. So it's just a kind of nice way to grind some money if you just don't need that EP that day. But that is only done the first day, or second, I think, technically. And this is our last area that we kind of go in. There's the four major areas of the game. And yeah, this is the Wildlands, the last one.
So something that might not be incredibly apparent, but is incredibly important to the run, is that the PC remaster includes a 60 FPS mode, which is awesome. It looks great. One problem, though, there are a couple of bugs associated with it, including using the farming patches in this area while the game is set to 60 FPS can occasionally cause them to bug out and become permanently unusable. So sometimes when we're in the Wildlands, we're going to be swapping our FPS down to 30 just so we can avoid that from ever happening. So if one of the games looks a little weird or like it has a lower frame rate while they're in this area, it does.
So otherwise, the run is over. We have no spare patches.
Yeah, it would be pretty rough to recover. So here we're picking up the Woodland Walker outfit. It's just kind of a basic magic garb that's going to give us an arrow for free. And arrow is very important because our next couple of main bosses are weak to air. Now, one of the fun things to talk about in Lightning Returns is just all the ways the game can be incredibly mean to you with ridiculous enemy spawns.
Yes.
This area is notorious for that because, of all things, in this tiny passage, a behemoth can spawn.
Taking up the whole thing.
Usually it gets stuck up like on some of the debris on the sides of the area, but yeah, that is a fight that you cannot win right now and is really terrifying if it shows up, but it looks like Aris is going to make it through unscathed.
Ooh. Those mini flans are just a precursor to a terrible enemy to come. So this here is our Chocobo Eater. This fight has a little bit of RNG to it. What we're doing is we're waiting for him to do a bite attack, and he'll do anywhere between 1 and 3 punches. After the third, he will always do that bite, because in order to stagger him and to get him to take that extra damage, he has to do the bite first. So it looks like you got the worst luck here. 3 punches for the bite.
Yeah, all 3 of them. But thankfully, the strategy after that is pretty simple. We're going to throw arrow 3 times to stagger him, and then we're going to hit the blitz button as hard as we can.
This run is brought to you by Blitz. Oh, did I see a drop there? Was that?
Magnet, yeah.
Was
Yeah,
that
nice.
magnet? Nice.
Yeah.
So Chocobo Eater can drop 2 important spells for later in the run. He can drop Magnet, which we have no other way to get. The only way we can get Magnet is from a drop, and it speeds up some minor
there is
attacks a
Cyclops.
little later.
Well,
yeah, but that's also a
That's
fight.
also a
No
drop.
chests.
Yeah, there's no way to get it aside from getting lucky. Yeah. He can also drop Blizzara, which we can get from a chest if nothing drops it, but it wastes like, I want to say 30 seconds to go pick up, so it's always nice if you just happen onto it.
Also, the drop abilities sometimes have kind of like bonus stats attached to them, which the ones in the chest will just never have. So sometimes you'll get something good, like extra magic or something.
And here we're going to pick up the Imp's Crest, which is, I believe, entirely identical to the Magician's Crest. It's just good to have.
It's for debuffs.
Oh, it is for
Yeah.
debuffs. Okay.
Yes.
It's good to have, and it's literally right in our way on the way back from Chocobo Eater, so there's no reason not to just pick it up. So it looks like Sephorin is just about to start smacking the guards around while Eris starts playing Heal the Chocobo. So we need this Chocobo. He is vital to the plot, but he's sick, and that's very sad. So we're going to have to grow some Grishel Greens to heal the Chocobo and run around and pick up a bunch of items from other people involved in Chocobos, like this Chocobo Hunter with the Chocobull.
Yes, this chocobo we're healing it's a magical chocobo. They nicknamed it the Angel of Valhalla, and it only appears close to the end of the world. And it didn't really want to seem to take any help from anyone, but for some odd reason, Lightning and her protagonist armor have breached his emotions.
Also, you saw me make a safety save because I haven't had the game crash much on me, but it happened here once.
Yeah, the 13 ports, not terrible ports, but they do have their crashes.
Well, for square ports, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah, they're not bad ports, but
all things
especially 13
considered,
too.
all things considered, they're good. The performance can be a little hit and miss, especially because the game just cares about like how strong a single core on your CPU is. If I understand correctly, doesn't really take advantage of multi-threading at all. But that's neither here nor there. So right now, Eris is running into the woods to find that girl's father, who is a master of growing things in the woods. And while he's in the woods, he's going to stop at these 4 little shovel sites and pick up some fertilizer, which we're going to use to revitalize the plant patches back in the town. And we're going to use those to grow our greens throughout the run.
Luckily, they allow you to pick them up before you actually get the quest to go and pick them up, so it's saves some time.
Now, something we might see here for the first time, I don't think we saw it earlier, is that if enemies get too close to NPCs, the NPCs will freak out and run away, which is it's a little bit of a cute touch, honestly. I like it, except for when you need to talk to them, because they will absolutely refuse to talk to you while they are panicked.
And Cole is notorious for doing that.
Yeah.
So there we talked to a guy, gave him some fertilizer, and he told us that the girl's father is actually dead, and it's very sad, but he gave us back the fertilizer, so, I mean, that's great. Thank you for that.
The big thing with how the state of the world is in LR is because of the chaos, people will never die from old age. They stay the same age forever, and they've been for countless years. But if you die from violence or from sickness or anything like that, you're dead. Like, that's it. But you might stay a child for hundreds of years.
So after picking up the fertilizer, we just teleport back to the Wildlands station. It's actually a really long walk to get back there on foot, and we have no other use for our EP today anyway, so it's easier to just teleport. Also, it's a convenient time to swap the frame rate during that loading screen. I'm not sure where you do it, Eris.
Yeah, I did it during the loading screen. After I selected to teleport.
This was the first game where I really started to notice the difference between 30 FPS and 60. I was always like, what's the difference? And then I started running it and I was like, oh, that's the difference.
So yeah, meanwhile, on Sephorin's stream, we see Sephorin selling those extra Phoenix Downs we picked up at the start of the game for money so we can do our Yusnan shopping trip. It's also helpful to just pick up the little glinting items on the ground sometimes. They can be medals of bronze, silver, platinum, or gold, and each is worth a ascending amount. Sometimes the one right there in Yusnan where Sephorin was is a platinum medal, which makes the money routing pretty easy. But if not, you usually just wind up with enough stuff to make the late game purchases possible.
One thing to watch out for in Yusnon also is, especially before we finish off our fireworks quest, because we have started picking up our fireworks, there is a NPC in Yusnon. It's a small boy in a yellow jacket, who, if you run into him with your character, he will steal from you. And if you have fireworks, he will steal a firework sometimes, or possibly all the time if you have them. And if that happens, it's not good, because there are not many other opportunities besides the one we take to get extra fireworks, and it's a whole side quest to get your stuff back from him that we just don't have time to do. If you don't have fireworks, he just takes your money. Little brat.
And you do actually have to get robbed by him to finish his side quest.
Yes. Hunting Freeman in the chat asking about the definitive time limit. Yes, there is a time limit for this game. You have to save the world within 13 days, but because of how things are going, there are only, when you start, I think, 6 days left. And the whole thing is that you are the savior. You have to save people and take their life force to the new world God wants to create. And when you save those people, you get the force to extend the world's time all the way up to 13 days. Because if for some reason you don't make it to day 13, God has decided you have failed, and the world's just doomed. That's kind of the TLDR version. There's a lot of extra stuff. It's a plot, that's for sure.
It's a plot is a pretty good way to describe that. As we see Sephorian taking on the cultist fight, and it looks like he's actually just got the perfect line there. Yeah, just immediately overclock, run in, blitz, cancel, blitz, cancel, blitz, cancel, one more blitz. All three of them die simultaneously, and we're good. And I think they dropped their weapon, actually. I didn't see that screen long enough. But those cultists have a chance to drop the weapon they're using, which is slightly better than the weapon you currently have and the weapon you're going to use for magic for a bit of the run. So you can go ahead and equip it. I'm not sure if Sephorian will if it did drop. It's such a minor increase and it messes with the menuing anyway, but it's just a cool little thing now. Meanwhile, we see Aris doing some farming, harvesting the greens. For whatever reason, harvesting these greens takes like an hour. Lightning has to just bend down and look at them for 5 minutes before she can pick them up. And then we have to feed them one by one to the chocobo.
But now he's not 100% better. He's still got the bandages. He can't fly, but we are able to ride him, which is much faster and requires no stamina.
Yeah, now that we can actually ride our chocobo friend, we're going to be picking up the rest of the greens that we farmed after we sleep for 6 hours to make sure that they can grow. And we're going to go pick up an item in the southern half of the Wildlands area that we need for one of the later main quests. It's possible to go get this item without the chocobo, but I mean, it would just take so long walking down there with the stamina meter. And besides, we get this, lovely jazzy remix of Boko the Chocobo. It's great.
Yes. Jazz flute. And Sephorian just getting into the Dead Dunes, gonna do his run through to get that tablet.
Yeah, a lot of the first couple of days of Lightning Returns are just set up. You know, we're setting up each quest to be either completable or on one of its later steps, and then in a sequence of 2 or 3 days, we're gonna tear down all of the major objectives and just boss fight after boss fight after boss fight.
There will also be a segment of Beauty Sleep where Lightning will sleep for several days in preparation for the end. Very important.
Gotta
Woman
look your
needs some
best.
beauty sleep.
during the apocalypse.
Gotta look good for the end of the world. This is another very tight day. You'll see it's 5:30, and we're just running up towards this item, which is up this ladder on Aris's side.
But sadly, it's not tight enough.
Yeah, no, the problem with this day, honestly, is that he's going to run up here and get this item, and then hope that an enemy happens to spawn somewhere along this strip of land.
Like right now? No?
Right
please?
now would be great. Anytime. Come on,
No?
game.
Okay, fine, I'll teleport.
When you're first learning, it's tight, and then it gets to be a pain once you start to get good.
You really want an enemy to spawn here, because otherwise what you're going to have to do is teleport back to Yusnan, Luxarian. I don't remember the city names. You're going to have to teleport back to the first city and go to sleep at the inn, which will save you a little bit of time tomorrow, but not as much as just getting into an encounter would, because you can teleport to any of the major cities from the Arc, which is kind of your between stage hub. So while Sephorian's going through the desert, something we didn't mention while Aris was running around is you want to pay attention to lightning's movement in this area. We mentioned that running consumes the stamina bar, but sliding doesn't, and sliding is actually just as fast as running is. So when we move through the desert area, our goal is to try and, use slopes to our advantage as much as possible, cut the lines as shallow as we can to get as much sliding movement instead of running or walking movement.
That Mayonectin wanted your blood. That was close.
Yeah, the enemies are being really mean today. Luckily, both of our runners managing to escape peril.
I wasn't going to talk, but my heart skipped a bit.
Oh, whoa, that one. Ooh. Very good use of the jump there by Sephorian to avoid that attack. Meanwhile, Aris, he wound up back in the city at 6 a.m. He's going to sleep until 3 a.m., as you do. That's what I do on most days normally. And we're finally going to go ahead and break into that cultist stronghold. But first, we need to find the number. So we're going to go on over here. We're going to take a look at the number. Let's see what that number is.
4.
That's a 4. So one of the harder things for newer runners is you want to look at that number. You don't want to examine that number because that starts a very lengthy cutscene where Lightning has to look at it for 5 minutes before she can read it. But the trick is that the 5 looks very much like a 6 until you are sure that it is a 5, and it can be very confusing. So now we're going to enter the passcode. The passcode, like we said, it's 4 digits long, but there's a gimmick to it. So the first number can only be 1, 2, or 3. We know the second number, it's 4. The third number is always 0, and the fourth number can only be 7, 8, or 9. So there are only 9 different permutations that the code can be given what we know. And we're just going to brute force through all of them until one of them eventually works. And I think that was 3rd try? 4th try? It's pretty good.
4th.
Each try only wastes 4 or 5 seconds, so it's not a huge loss if you do wind up with 9th try. But getting first try is always nice.
Oh, I forgot that 2 of them were static numbers, so I probably never did look at 3.
Oh, just one. Just a 0 is static.
Just one, yeah. 0 is always static.
Right, but then the other one only has a few options. Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah, the one is static because you went and...
We saw the 4.
Oh my god.
So speaking of really bad enemy spawns, this area can spawn the dragon from the tutorial. It can spawn it in very tight areas too. Luckily,
It's actually a different dragon.
Yeah, that one's different. The tutorial dragon's back in Snow's castle. He can spawn.
You definitely don't want to fight it either way.
Yeah. Luckily, that was a pretty big area. You can get him in the more narrow hallways, and it's not good.
Not good at all.
So here, story-wise, we're just trying to confront these cultists who are killing people that look like the savior, trying to find us, who is the savior. And they're just killing women with pink hair, so we're trying to get them to stop that, because random woman shouldn't have to die.
Yeah, we pick up the crest of Etro, which is going to let us enter the area with our first major boss, and I believe the first split we have, Noel.
Yes. Yeah, the children of Etro, just there's some irony if you mix it with 13-2, because they obviously worship Etro, but Lightning in 13-2 is the guardian and like warrior of Etro. Just things that they never think to look into.
As are all of our protagonists in Type 0, but that's a spoiler.
Type 0 is also a plot. We'll get there later. Yeah, so here Noel is egging us on because there was a prophecy that Noel was going to kill us. And it's shown in an Oracle Drive, which means that it's very, very likely to happen. But Lightning, as always, defies fate and is going to chase and save Noel and hopefully save her own life in the process.
Yeah, but before we can do that, we have to do some rooftop parkour, because what Final Fantasy XIII really needed was hardcore platforming segments.
Oh, yes. They figured they liked that part at the end of 13-2 so much with all the jumping, they had to put more of it in Lightning Returns.
Now we're going to take a quick detour here to pick up the Battle Axe of the Believer from this chest. It's just a really strong weapon, and that's something we're going to put on before we fight Noel. Has some good magic stats, and I believe it has a bonus percent to stagger on it. The enemies here are incredibly annoying. You really don't have the time to get hit by one and avoid their random encounters, so hopefully Aris can jump around them, and it looks like he's going to with no problem. So the Noel fight is incredibly choreographed. We're going to make a safety save here just in case. I'm going to be quiet for like the 20 seconds of the fight, and I'll explain it right when Aris is done.
Yes.
Well, that was a bit freestyle, but it worked.
It was you improv it and you got it.
that wasn't quite what was supposed to happen, but I mean, excellent save there. Excellent save. So yeah, the Noel fight. Basically, in a nutshell, his first few attacks are completely determined. There's no RNG in what he's going to do. So we can choreograph the fight based around his actions. We're going to want to start by throwing deep protects at him so that we can do solid damage to him. And then we have just enough time to throw a single arrow at him before he rushes at us and strikes twice. Ideally, we want to perfect guard him twice because that'll help us stagger a lot faster, but we definitely want to make sure he doesn't hit us. Then we want to alternate between throwing arrows and throwing items, and then hitting him with thunders if he isn't staggered until he does stagger. Throw a warrior's potion, hit him with Gale Strike to take him to stagger level 2, which is a thing where when you stagger an enemy, if you then bring their wave line to red like it's about to stagger again, they'll actually start taking significantly more damage. And then from there, we just blitz him until the end of the fight.
I think on Sephorian's side, that was a first try bite, so it's better RNG than we had on Mog's side. So having a little bit of trouble staggering him. There we go.
Now that you mention that, I think my streams might be just a little bit behind, so I'm going to refresh. So now we feed
No
the rest. We feed the rest of the greens to the chocobo, and now it can kind of hover, which means more platforming. Yay!
Yay, platforming. Yeah, so it looks like on Choco's side, Sephorian did not get that magnet drop, so he has only one other chance during the run to get that, and if he doesn't, it will slow down 2 fights coming up later on pretty significantly. For the longest time, I didn't realize if you just drop down there, it was a shortcut. If you jump over that gap, it's just a giant loop, and you lose a ton of time. I didn't know that.
I used to do that too.
Yeah, no, there's just like a whole other parkour area over there, and none of it matters. You can
To
just
be fair, it's pretty fun.
fun is a subjective word. So we're gonna go meet our good old friend Saz, but before we do, we need to take a quick detour to pick up some items. Most importantly, we're gonna run over here and get the Infrost bracelet, which is gonna let us start fights with the frost status on our weapon, so we deal ice damage. Water God bracelet. There we go. Why do we want to deal? Yeah, well, why do we want to deal ice damage? Well, we are going to fight a thing or two that's weak to it, but mostly it's because we're going to pick up Imperil soon. And Imperil reduces all of the target's elemental resistances to the point where doing any elemental damage is generally better than doing 0 elemental damage. We're also going to make sure we run into the camp so we have it as a teleport destination later, and because we didn't get a Blizzara drop earlier, we're going to run over behind the camp and pick up this level 2 Blizzara.
Both runners on the same map, but different times of day and different days entirely. Yeah, Saz is living in this downed airship over here, but if everyone remembers the comedic relief, happy-go-lucky character from previous games, he, much like Snow, spends most of the game sitting in his house and crying, because all of the characters in this game are just very sad, except for Lightning.
I mean, but as is characteristic of Saz, Saz actually has a good motivation to be sad, unlike everyone else, because Saz is the best character in 13.
Wait, are you telling me Snow doesn't have a good motivation?
Does Snow ever have a good motivation for anything? Let's be real.
Good point.
He's the hero!
But yeah, Saz is sitting here in this airship, and he's very sad because his son Daj has been asleep for 500 years, and that's a little bit of a long time to be asleep. As it turns out, it's because his soul was fractured into 5 pieces, so we're gonna have to scour the world for them, including the piece that's just literally right outside Saz's house. I don't know if Saz just didn't look anywhere for them or what, but I mean, don't worry about it.
No, come down. Come down. Yes.
Now the hardest part of the run, finding an encounter after talking to Saz, and it actually looks like Eris got pretty lucky there. Sometimes enemies just refuse to spawn here, and there's nothing you can do. You don't have EP for teleport. You just have to wait for something to spawn or run around until you find an enemy.
Yeah, and we're coming up on him soon.
Oh yeah, so we're coming up on one of the most frustrating parts of the run.
The most frustrating part of the run.
It's been rerouted in some newer routes to be much earlier in the game, which makes the fight a little bit harder, but it also means that you're going to reset your run at like 20 minutes instead of an hour, which is a lot more forgiving. But we need to kill a Desert Sahagin and get a drop of Imperil. I believe Imperil has a 15% drop chance by default, and being in the Chaos is going to increase that to a 30% drop chance.
Yes.
But that's still only 30% chance to drop. And the run cannot continue without Imperil. There is absolutely no way to do some of these late game fights without debuffing your opponents. We are going to need to kill one story. Oh, yeah, there we go. We got the bug where it just teleports you back to where you were. Always good to see that one. First, we're going to go defeat this Gurren Gotch monster that's part of the story, and then it's going to be time to farm the Imperil, so everyone wish Eris good luck, because we're going to need it. I believe our runners do have a safety save, just in case Imperil farming takes, you know, an hour, because there is theoretically no limit on how long this could take. But hopefully we won't need that for either of them.
how chaos works in this game is after you fight one enemy, the chaos of the area will disappear. So you'll find that before Imperil, runners will save, just because it's actually much better chances if you reload your save over and over to find the Sahagin in the chaos than to try and get that 15% drop from one out of the chaos.
It also lets you use the overclock strat to do the fight, which significantly reduces the time required. As much as I'd love the race to get closer, Illimans, especially as a member of Team Mog, I would not wish anybody being stuck on Imperil ever. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. So the Sahagin fight in a nutshell, we're going to deprotect it, we're going to deshell it, we're going to throw arrows at it, and then we're going to hit the blitz button. It's a good button. I recommend hitting the blitz button.
Please. No!
Oh, trolls. So
Oh,
Sahagins can also drop
Dispel.
other skills. We gotta Dispel, not an Imperil. But if you
Yeah.
see like a crystal rise up from the enemy like that, that means we gotta drop, so that's better than seeing nothing. It's just not what we're looking for.
Yeah, I believe they can drop Dispel, Deprotect, Deshell, and Imperil, all at a 15% chance.
That sounds about right.
It is worth mentioning that enemies can drop multiple abilities at once if they choose. They're all rolled individually. For example, the Chocobo Eater can drop both Magnet and Blizzara if he's feeling incredibly generous.
All right, another fairly fast Sahagin spawn. Sometimes they just don't want to show up, and you'll get like 6 Sahagins to show up, or just other enemies to show up before you get one.
Yeah, getting a solo Sahagin is also the best case scenario. Sahagins can come with other enemies too, which never make the fight unwinnable, but can certainly make the fight more annoying.
And Sahagins have 2 different ways that you can stagger them, as a lot of enemies do. Oh. No,
Oh.
Dispel again. The Sahagin, if you spam a bunch of arrows, they will eventually get staggered, but if you manage to perfect guard one of their rush attacks, it is also an instant stagger. So we're trying to kind of aim for that block stagger because it's usually going to come up sooner, but luckily arrow can do the same.
We didn't mention this earlier, but over on Sephorian's screen, he's picking up an In Thunder potion and an In Fire potion to help us fight some of the bosses. We used the In Thunder potion against Noel because he's weak to lightning. And we'll use the In Fire potion a little bit later in the run. Snow. As it turns out, Snow is weak to fire. Who knew?
Nope, no drops. So yeah, this is the big thing for lightning returns. The Imperil grind is merciless and forgives no one.
I mean, while we have a few minutes talking about Imperil grind, Koino, I know you used to run this game a bit. I used to run this game a bit. Obviously, our runners run this game pretty actively. How many attempts do you give it in an actual run before you reset? I think personally, I went to 3. If I didn't get Imperil after my 3rd or 4th, I was like, nope, run's dead.
Yeah, 3 is a good number, but also it depends on what the PB is.
Yeah, for that it would really just it would depend on how many tries it took me in prior attempts, and sometimes if I just wanted to finish a run, I would let it go up to like lost 15 minutes. But no, normally it would be like, yeah, about 3 or 4 tries. You don't see it, it's over. And then you get that one PB where you get first spawn, first try. You have to run against it, and you're like, oh, do I just reset it?
Oh, I've been there, and we see a poor encounter, which means Lightning's going to begin the fight with 10 or 5% less health. Honestly, if you get poor encountered by a Sahagin, whatever. At least you got a Sahagin.
They still melt, thanks to the power of Overclock.
Oh my lord.
So, while we're farming this, we might as well take some time to re-explain the combat system for maybe some people who haven't come in. So in Lightning Returns, you can equip Lightning with up to 3 individual garbs, and each of those garbs can have their own abilities like attack, block, thunder, blizzara, whatever you want to put on them. Some of those garbs come with pre-installed abilities, like the Velvet Bouncer garb, the purple suit that Lightning is wearing. That comes with the Blitz ability as well as a bonus to Strength, or her Velvet Rouge outfit, which comes with a bonus to Magic as well as Deprotected D-Shell. Each guard has its own ATB. Each action takes a certain amount of ATB to go ahead and use. But each guard has its separate ATB, a separate ATB pool, and regenerates separately. So what you'll see is a lot of like, hey, we're going to deprotect D-Shell, throw some arrows, switch to another garb, throw some abilities, switch to a third garb, do some blitzes. And here what we're seeing is an ability called Overclock, which basically gives you an entirely separate ATB pool as well as slows down time for you. Deprotect and D-Shell drop from the Sahagin. Now I think it is just taunting us.
Yep.
But all of that comes together to make a really fun and fluid active battle system where you can just kind of string together abilities that you've chosen, and you could specialize each of your garbs to do different things. Maybe you want one to be strong at deprotecting. Maybe you want one to be a powerful magic garb. Maybe you want one to be like an impenetrable tank garb. You could do that and just swap between them on the fly. One of the things we'll actually see a little bit later in the run that I really love is we will be using an ability with one garb and then swapping to another garb and using guard to use ATB of the second garb to garb cancel abilities of the first garb. Really fun advanced technique.
Yeah, because if you try and use the garb you're on, you just won't have the ATB to finish your string of attacks.
Nope.
Well, while Aris continues to try and farm Imperil, it looks like Sephorian's just about to start the Noel night run. So let's see how he does on numbers. I'm gonna predict second try numbers. I believe in this numbers.
Let's say, what did we have? We had fourth try last time.
We had a fourth try from Aris, yeah.
I'm gonna predict even fourth try.
So I guess something else to mention is you'll notice Aris now has 6 maximum EP instead of 5. You get +1 when you defeat the main story bosses.
When you kill your friends. I mean save. They're saved. Very different. Man, the Sahagins are not being kind today.
Yeah, this is always the fear. The longest streak I've heard, I have heard of a runner having an 83 dry streak. As we see, I believe that was a 6 on Sephorian's screen. It didn't get quite a good look at it.
Yes, that was because it didn't have the cap. That's the one where the 6 and the 5, they look very similar, but the 5 has that line across the top. You got a 6 there.
Yeah, the 5 looks very much like a 6. It's incredibly deceptive until you're used to it.
Alright. We've got the numbers. So that was 1. Nope, not second try.
Aris, did you prepare an Imperil save?
I did, but it doesn't have mag.
Oh. I mean, okay, like, give it
I'm
one
gonna-
more attempt, and
yeah,
then past
yeah.
that point you're free to use it if
Yeah,
you want.
okay.
Getting excessive.
Okay.
Sephorian did get 4th try numbers. She was lucky.
Of course, when I did the backup save, I got it first try.
Ah, yes. Yeah, unfortunately, especially with marathons, this is just the luck of the draw. It's this could go on forever, or it could happen this time.
I think Sephorian got the magnet drop from Chocobo.
He did not, but we do have one more chance to get it. So
Right, it could come. It could happen at Cyclops, but let's just hope this is the Sahagin. This is the run,
everyone pray together. Pray to RNG this.
Nope.
Dang.
All right.
All right.
One more.
All right, one more for real, and then we're gonna have to cut to the safety save.
I propose we make a category where there is a backup. Imperil
That would be
save.
called a segmented.
No, that would be called a different.
Yeah, no,
very
we RTA LR, but at any point you're free to run to this specific spot in the desert and just load a save with identical progress and an Imperil. That's the new category. Count me in.
I think pretty much all of the community would be fine with that. Oh, we got the rare cactar spawn. That's the blessing. That's what it is.
No
except
idea.
unfortunately-
You have no idea how many times.
Cactuars sometimes are slow to despawn, so that was lucky that he just ran off. Alright, this is it. Ooh, bad spawn on Sephorian's side, luckily able to jump over it. Those guard robots are in a hallway just about the size of them.
Nope. Okay, fine. No
Alright.
magnets.
Safety save it is.
Well, yeah, it looks like Aris is gonna have to resort to the safety save. Unfortunate, but again, that is why we made sure the runners had safety saves available, because this could literally go on forever. There is no cap on how long this could take. RNG could decide that this will never work. So we're just gonna cut to a save that I assume is gonna be right about in the same place, just with Imperil.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that means Eris is going to give up the magnet drop, so we're probably not going to see magnet strats unless one of our runners pulls it out of Cyclops, but at least the run's going to finish, and that's what's important at the end of the day.
Yes, indeed. And of course, if we don't end up getting it, we will mention the magnet strats where they happen. It's not a huge difference how it looks, but it is just a speed up.
Does Eris get the lucky merchant? Oh, nope, no lucky merchant spawn.
Where is he on the screen?
He's directly to the right of the crux.
Okay. I've never gotten him during a run. Never.
Me
I
either.
think I've gotten him once. So there's a merchant that just travels around the game selling really expensive items that we can't do much with in the run. He can spawn there. It's like a 1 in 32 chance or something. He's exceedingly rare, and there's no game, but it's cool. Meanwhile, Sephorian is going to move on to the Noel fight, so let's get ready on that split.
Split coming up. And Aris is grabbing just another tablet within the ruins. Always more to get. All right, and that's the Noel fight. Split for him.
That's Noel for Sephorian, yeah. Didn't quite get the stagger when he wanted. Took one extra arrow, but I mean, that's no big deal. It happens sometimes if Noel gets a hit in on you.
Yeah, they both had about the same speed of fight. That one's just one where, with the timing, sometimes you just have to improv, but usually easy to recover.
I'm a little sad we don't actually get to see his later phase. So if Noel survives those first 2 stabs, he'll do a rush lunge at you of like 20 stabs and then throw his spear 3 times. And if you perfect parry the entirety of it, he'll stagger himself, and it's super fun. But we don't actually get to do that in the run. Meanwhile, Aris is trading in that item we picked up in the Wildlands for another piece of Dodge's soul, as well as a plus 10 HP and plus 1 to magic. Very important. Not important.
You'll see floating there on Aris' screen that treasure chest that has like the weird little light rings around it. Not important at all for the speedrun, unfortunately, but those are chests that have been locked by a character in the game. Oh God, Lumina? Is that her fault? Yeah.
No, you have to spend EP.
Well, yeah, no, but she's the one who's locked them, or at least
okay.
some of them, and you have to spend EP to get them.
Yeah, if I do things right, we're never gonna see Lumina.
Yes, if cutscene skips happen, then Lumina will never. I can't believe I forgot her name. That's kind of odd, but
It is worth mentioning that cutscene skips in this game are really weird. Sometimes the game just like wants you to watch the first 10 seconds of a cutscene before it'll let you skip it.
sounds oddly like another game I know.
Wait, what? Which one is that? Kingdom Hearts? No.
No, not Kingdom Hearts. Also, Type 0 has really, really wonky cutscenes.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's another one of those games where it's just like, oh, you wanted to skip this cutscene? Come back in like 10 seconds. We'll get to you. So here we're gonna take that pass we bought on the second day to the back area of Yusnan, the little industrial district where you can apparently see the amazing fireworks. I don't know how any civilian ever gets through this area because this area is awful. There are a lot of incredibly dangerous encounters that we just don't have the ability to fight and can be so big and in the wrong place that we don't have the ability to avoid.
Ooh, yep, getting bonked by one there.
As well as just a bunch of these little annoying goblin enemies that waste time. Like, you can see, they die in 2 hits. They just waste a ton of time.
On normal, you're only allowed so many escapes, right? Before the timing just is,
Yep,
is
it's
not
very
yet.
tight.
You're only allowed 2. Anything beyond that, you're done.
Oh, bad luck. Those are
Yeah.
these guys are a little more annoying. They just
Yeah.
cause problems.
These hoplites are thankfully defeatable, so we're not gonna have to run from it. But they're very annoying. As you can see, they spawn in and can immediately attack you to start a fight, and their attacks are incredibly disjointed. They can hit you from like 4 or 5 character lengths away. They can hit you through walls even. So it's not uncommon to see one just spawn in instantly and enforce a battle.
Nice dodge there.
Thank you.
And Sephorian's just off on his way to pick up Blizzara and then visit Saz.
No.
Unfortunate enemy spawn there means we can't buy bravery potions right now, but that's okay. There'll be an opportunity to pick up some a little later in the run. So Aris is coming on to the next boss we're gonna fight here in Yusnan, the Cyclops, if you can call him a boss. He's kind of just an ascended normal enemy.
Ooh, this is the annoying one. Oh, we got grabbed by it.
That's the absolute worst place for it to spawn because there's just you can't jump over that enemy. It's too tall unless there's a box immediately like next to it, and you cannot fight that enemy. It would take like 2 minutes to kill. So we're gonna have to use one of our 2 escapes for this entire segment to get away from that. Hopefully, we won't need to use another one.
No, it's just a hoplite. Oh, and it despawns, yeah. So there are some triggers in the area where enemies will spawn ahead of you, but you'll hit like a certain point where enemies just despawn because there's a plot point coming up. So this here is going to be Cyclops, which is our last chance for Aris to get the magnet drop. This fight goes very fast.
Yep. I mean, all we're gonna do for this fight is throw a warrior potion, debuff this guy, hit him with a couple of arrows. We're gonna trade a blitz with his club, and then we're just gonna alternate blitz and arrows until he's dead.
I'm so bad at this fight.
I forgot that normal doesn't overclock him. I'm so spoiled by easy.
Okay, no magnet.
No magnet. Ah, well.
Oh well. That's okay. Maybe Sephorian will have a chance to get to magnet off of the Cyclops enemy. Looks like Sephorian got a pretty quick enemy spawn too after talking to Saz. So the whole reason we came down here was to find an access key card, which is going to let us into the high life district of Yusnan, get us a little closer to Snow's Palace. And unfortunately, the next couple of minutes for Aris are just going to be a massive fetch quest where we're going to have to go into the upper class district, talk to some people, go get some more fireworks, come back, talk to some people. The whole thing is unfortunately probably the least interesting part of the run. Houston's just also just I don't know if anyone else has this problem, Aris or Koinu, but I find this to be the city that causes the most trouble with lag and just
Yes.
Yeah.
the game.
By
The game
far.
does not like loading everything in this city.
Yeah, it's just all the bright lights and the fancy decorations. Too much for the port to handle.
I've heard what it is the game does a really bad job of culling NPCs that are off screen.
Mhm.
But don't take my word for that. That's just something I've heard in passing.
I'd believe it. There's a lot of people in Houston.
Also, annoyingly, there's a cutscene every time you open that door, so that's always fun.
Got to talk about what's going on. The story thus far.
It's a riveting story. Meanwhile, Sephorin just tearing through the Gurren Gotch and is just about to start his Imperil grind. Everyone wish Sephorin luck in chat. Hey, first try Imperil could really bring this race back to more even footing.
And as Sent said, even though we are on opposite teams, I don't wish bad Imperil luck on anyone. We've been there. It's just
We've all been there. Yeah. Nobody wants to farm Imperil for 20 minutes. It's not fun.
So what's going on Sephorian plot-wise, or on the not Sephorian, on the Eris' side, is we really need to get back into Snow's Palace. But thanks to our attempt in the prequel, in the intro, everyone's been searching for us. So we are going to this fancy rich area, and they're putting on a play all about the savior, who is Lightning. But the main lead either isn't there for some reason, or they don't want to risk her. Lightning decides that she wants to take the lead of this play, but the director's like, I don't know. So we have to go and get a dress to look the part. In order to do that, we have to go do something later. But for now, the fireworks is part of the project as well. So first we're doing the fireworks, and then we have to go and convince the director. Got a little out of order there.
What's important to note is that the fireworks go off every night at a certain time, which is why one of the big reasons that getting encounters before the Cyclops is such a bad thing. Because if you're late to Houston, they'll have already shot the fireworks off, and you won't be able to pick them up from these fireworks vendors we're talking to here. We're also going to do just a quick shopping here. We're going to sell a few items, and we're going to buy the Dragoon Gauntlet, as well as the Kikyu Kimonji. My favorite sword with the most impossible name.
Kikwi. Just the Kikwi.
Oh, Miko reps skip.
Hey.
Nice.
And the guy is not spooked.
That's good. Yeah, those guards can cause some problems with enemies running away. Or not enemies, NPCs running away.
So yeah, after you speak to all of the chocobo ladies, they're supposed to give you a special garb that is Indikote from Final Fantasy XIV, but sometimes you can just completely skip that cutscene by mashing hard enough, which is always great.
Do I still have the garb though?
You should. I believe you just skip the cutscene.
Oh.
Not that the garb is particularly useful in the run, but I mean, it's cute. That's important.
And they can be used for super bosses.
And they make a cute little comment about how it's a mythical being from some realm known as Eorzea, because, 14.
Was a little low on health there.
Yes, the pains of normal. You do not recover HP outside of battle. Easy percent, you're never out of HP. If you are, something has gone wrong.
Today is one of the most combat-intensive days of the run, too. We're going to have to fight a couple of battles in Snow's Castle, and some of them can be pretty damaging. It's not unreasonable to die if you are on low health, so I fully respect Eris stopping at the cafe there to top off his HP.
Oh, I will also buy high potions if necessary.
Oh, I will too.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the merchant, just stop. I'll take the 20 seconds because I'd rather not die to those two dorks.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wrong.
Yeah, So now we're getting to the point where we have the fireworks, because Lightning's goal is to use the fireworks to basically bring down the set and crash into Snow's castle. And that's where, now that we have the fireworks, we're going to go to the director and be like, hey, we want to be on your stage. But he's a little iffy about that. We have to do some more fetch questing and proving of ourselves.
Yeah, he's like, hey, you know, I want to be on your stage. I want to play the savior in this play. And he's like, I don't know. You don't really look like the savior. Why don't you go get a nice dress and then come back and we'll talk. So we go to the only place in town where Lightning can get a dress at 11 p.m. at night, which is, of course, the arena.
It's a slaughterhouse.
A slaughterhouse, not just any arena.
I mean, as you do. That is where I shop for my dresses, personally. This round does not use the Mikote garb at all, unfortunately. We do not fight anything that would require it. You know what? Looks like Sephorian is still going for Imperil. Not sure how many attempts this is, but it looks like it's not being kind to him either, unfortunately. Imperil's just not being fun today, I guess.
No mercy for anyone. The Sahagins and Imperil do not pick sides.
There it is. Commentator's blessing, apparently, as Sephorian does finally get the Imperil drop. That means
So
he's going to be able
definitely,
to move on to.
Definitely a time save compared to on the Mog side. Wasn't as close as it could have been, though. So this is the first fight where Magnet would have been used. See how these guys are scattered all around in the corners. You blitz through them and they die really fast, but Magnet draws all of the enemies to it. So you just draw them all in a neat little circle and Blitz hits all of them and they die very fast. It's just a small time save, but it's nice.
It's nice to have, and you would equip it there anyway because you'd use it a little bit later in the run for another fight as well. So now we're going to fight some Anubis like we fought at the very beginning of the game. These are a little stronger, and hey, we have Imperil now, so we can triple debuff them. There's some Blizzaras, there's some Thunders, and just hit them with our sword.
Not quite getting the stagger there, but still good.
It worked out. So now we're gonna have to fight the boss from the beginning of the game twice.
Because why not?
Lightning Returns really likes to reuse its enemies. Let's be honest here. I love this game, but they got a little lazy with the enemy design. Thankfully, it has the same stats both times we fight it, so we can use the same strategy both times we fight it. And hopefully, we'll just have two quick identical dragon fights here. Ideally, we just want to, debuff it. There's some blizzards. There's some thunders. Throw a blizzard after we stagger it. Looks like it didn't stagger.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, you really need to stagger these dragons because until they put their heads down, you can't deal a lot of damage to them.
This is not good.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Aris needed a lot of extra ATB to stagger the Zaltis, so he actually didn't have enough to blitz enough after it was down. And that means he's gonna have to take another cycle on it, which is really not something you ever want to happen in Lightning Returns. These fights are very much designed to win very quickly or die. Just because of how long it takes for your ATB to recharge. You can see all of his garbs are basically empty. Bit of a rough fight, but he persevered, and that's what matters in the end. It's also worth noting that we have the Thorn of Will, which gives us faith at the start of each fight, but also takes 5% of our max HP every time we get into a battle. So we're always going to be entering battle a little more wounded.
I never actually know what that did. I just put it on because the speedrun said to do it. Who am I to argue with the almighty routers?
Yeah, it gives us auto faith, but takes 5% of our health. Honestly, pretty good trade. So now we're gonna fight the same boss again, and hopefully this time Eris will be able to show off a really cool strat for it. I'll be quiet.
Nope. Oh, come on.
Finally staggered. Had a lot of trouble there. Oh, got the second stagger too, though. That's good.
Yeah, again, not a lot of ATB on that yellow garb, which is where we have our blitz and our strongest physical damage. So unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be another one. And
Getting real low on HP.
Nope.
You did do a save just before this.
I did, and I was debating the second one before the Zeltas, and I should have.
Though you didn't have any escapes during the day, so
Yeah,
or you
that's
had one.
fine.
You had one,
I
so
had
that should
one.
still be all right. Yeah, luckily with lightning returns, if you get beaten, you just have to escape. You do lose. Actually, no, you don't lose your resources. You go back in with the same EP and everything you had. It's
Yeah.
basically like the fight never happened, but in normal, that you do lose that in-game hour.
yeah, you lose the hour for running away. But again, because we only had to run from one enemy, it's completely manageable.
Again.
I think this is one of the fights that is affected by. Oh, that one went better definitely, but is affected by perfect timing.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But still, something seems off. I have to check my menu. Because now it definitely should be dead.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I know what the problem was.
Did you not equip
no.
Kiku?
Yeah.
Yeah,
did not.
I just
Oh my
I just
God.
noticed you have the wrong sword equipped. Yeah, that's
Oh
not
my
Kiku.
God.
Yeah, that
That'll
is
do
a
it.
huge damage upgrade. So
It's
that would
actually
explain it.
impressive that I managed it at all. Oopsie daisy.
All
Well,
right,
I mean,
inside we have another chance to get that magnet drop.
Okay. Double cross.
Yep,
Yep, I
Cyclops
did
fighting the
have
Cyclops
one.
here.
Okay, this explains a lot.
Yeah, you didn't have Thorn of Will either, so no auto. Yeah, that would explain a lot.
Nope, no magnet for either runner.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sephorian didn't get the magnet drop either, so we'll talk about it when the Cactuar fight comes up a little later, how magnet makes that fight so much nicer. But Sephorian about to start the fun fetch quest, and Eris is going to go back now with his pretty dress, which for whatever reason gives you fire level 3.
Thank you.
Oh, dude, almost forgot to put it on. Yeah, well.
His pretty
And
dress
also,
that he should definitely equip. But yeah, that gives him fire level 3. It's a strong magic garb. We'll actually be wearing it all the way up until the very end of the run when we get some basically supercharged garbs to use for the final boss fights. And it's just it's a strong magical utility garb, and it lets us go into Snow's Castle. That's what I was about to say. Lost my train of thought there.
Also, increases your sprint meter. More
Does it?
sprinting.
Does it
I think-
actually?
I
Wow.
believe so, yes.
Yep, by a lot.
It's my turn to learn something today. I had no idea.
Plus, if you're listening, I personally love the touch of the sound of her high heels clacking around. Nice touch for the developers there.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite outfits to just have lightning run around in. Just because the audio is great. One of the other really cute things they did is they actually change how she sits on a chocobo based on what she's wearing. So if she has like a dress on, she'll sit side saddle.
The femme, I can't even pronounce it. The femme fatale or whatever sword. It's like a rapier we just got. Unfortunately, don't use it at all. I think it's more magic based than it is strength based. So, but it's like the partner to the Midnight Mob.
If I remember correctly, it's just the stats on it aren't very good. I don't
Yeah.
think they're better than our current magic sword from very early in the game.
In the really, really old magic route, I think it was used. Because I remember back when I was first learning the game, I think it was equipped. But on Eris' side, this is another place where we can get some really bad spawns. Because, you know, you remember our fight against the... Oh my god, I just forgot its name.
The Zalthus?
No, the one that drops magnet.
Cyclops.
Cyclops.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Sorry about that, guys.
It's-
Cyclops can spawn in Snow's Castle if you're really unlucky.
Yeah, Cyclopses can spawn in the opening part here, and the dragon
right
we fought at
here.
the beginning of the game. Yeah, they can spawn in front of this door, which is a nightmare. They can also spawn in this staircase, which can also be a nightmare.
Oh, hey, look. There's one. Luckily, not a
Okay.
bad spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, we really can't fight those with our current equipment.
Oh, and we have no escapes. Zero room for escape.
We have
You
no
grind
extra time.
EP. You can grind EP. You can kill the monsters here in Chaos and get some EP back.
Yeah, luckily, these are just some niblets. Niblets are not much of a threat.
Yeah. Throw a couple of fires at them, and they just explode.
See, but now I have an extra EP. Now I could Chronostasis.
True, that's actually very good. Chronostasis is actually something we haven't covered yet. It is an EP skill you can use that freezes time. So if you're running out of time at the end of the day and you have more to do, there are certain days where we do have enough EP that if you need that Chronostasis, it is there. But it's not always beneficial because if you need to end a day, you have to wait for it to run off. Unless you go and find a place to rest, which usually doesn't line up.
Or run from an enemy.
Or run from it.
Yeah, today is the day I think most runners, if they're gonna Chronostasis, will probably Chronostasis just because Snow's Castle can be very tight, especially with the other quest we're going to have to complete after we beat Snow.
So there's still lots more to do and little time left in the day.
How much time do you gain from Chronostasis? That's a good question. I believe you gain the equivalent of 30 minutes in-game, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, I think it's about 5 real-time minutes. Which would more or less amount to that, I think.
It's a decent amount of time. It's definitely plenty of time if you've made a mistake and have the EP to cast it to fix your mistake, for the most part.
That is not good.
It is 1 minute and 15 seconds of real time. Which
That
is
is
30
not
minutes.
good.
Yep, okay, so Eris just ran into a fight with Angry Bird. It has a name, but it's Angry Bird, because it will run at you faster than you can avoid and try to kick you in the face. They are beatable in combat, but man, you don't want to have to fight one.
Nice fight, though.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you got that staggered pretty quick.
Yeah, it was a very good safety backup fight, whatever you want to call it, from Eris. You really don't want to have to deal with those guys. They hurt a lot, and they're very scary.
No.
Oh, man, really bad encounter luck here on this side. The hope is to not run into anything.
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, sometimes enemies can just spawn and immediately attack, making them unavoidable. Unfortunately, that's what happened here. The Niblet's not too much of a problem, but the Anubis can be a little hard to deal with. But again, Eris just cleaning both of them off without too much issue. I assume you're probably going to stop and grab a potion before the double Anubis fight.
Oh, yes.
I do
And
not
maybe
blame you.
afterwards.
So there is thankfully a merchant up here in Snow's Castle, and you can buy high potions from him. A lot of runners who aren't, at the very top of their game, if they are injured at all before going into the Anubis or Snow fight, will just stop and take a potion. It's just a good safety strat. Again, you don't have the time to retry fights at this point in the game. Better to waste 20 seconds to heal up.
This area does have some pretty wonky camera angles when you're skipping the cutscenes from their showing you where the switches are and the door you have to get to, which is pretty obvious, but the game wants to hold your hand through it. And yeah, you get some funny angles where if an enemy spawns, you can't quite see lightning before you can move her, and that was interesting. Oh, it still hit you. It hit him as he was hitting the button, and it didn't register the fight, but luckily just, again, some more niblets and
Uh-oh.
you got this.
Uh-oh.
I believe. Alright, yeah, he's down. You gotta believe.
Yeah, so unfortunately, every time you touch a switch in this area, the game has to show you the door, and every time you enter an area with a switch, the game has to show you the switch, because Lightning Returns, you know, it's an RPG. It's not a puzzle game. It does not believe you have any idea what a puzzle is. It's not sure you've ever seen a puzzle. So yeah, here Aris just gonna quickly buy and use a high potion, get his health back to full. Buy another one just to be safe.
We're not quite there yet, but we are approaching the next split.
I am also debating using a... This time does seem a bit tight.
Actually, yeah, because after you finish the snow fight, you would get EP back also. So yeah, that's a judgment call for you.
Yeah, I will do that now, because I don't feel safe.
Yeah, you can do it before the double Anubis fight. You'll get one back from that.
Yeah, so now he has 1 minute and 15 seconds of free standing time.
So yeah, we found Snow's room, but Snow's room is locked, so we have to go find Snow's other room and get a key item from that that'll open the door. But to do that, we have to take a fight that's...
Oh, that spawn.
That is a terrible spot for Angry
It dropped
Birds.
down, though. It dropped down, luckily.
Yeah. At least it got out of the way. But before we can actually fight Snow, we have to fight his 2 Anubis guards that are blocking his room. These Anubis are probably harder than Snow himself. They are incredibly aggressive. It's difficult to stagger both of them at the same time unless they really play along. And they can kill you in like 2 to 3 hits.
Also on Sephorian's side, we're getting into those Xaltis fights, which I'm not sure if he already did the first one. I didn't happen to catch it, but see how he does with this stagger strat. Yeah, there it goes. See, that's the quick stagger that you're aiming for, and then you just blitz right through him.
So what I really love about that strat is you see after the first stagger, he switches to his Woodland Waker Guard, throws a Blizzara, and then switches to his Velvet Bouncer and runs in with a Gale Strike so that the Blizzara and Gale Strike hit simultaneously, and you get that second stagger immediately, and then you just spam Blitz and the fight's over. It's super cool when it works out, and it looks great. And yeah, it looks like that was the first Xaltis, so he's going to do another Xaltis fight. Meanwhile, it looks like Aris made it through the double Anubis fight without too much trouble.
Into Snow's weird dungeon room, where you find Sarah's old pendant, which turns out to be the key to the door we needed.
How is it the key? No, nobody knows.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
magic, hopes, tears, you know, the usual Final Fantasy stuff.
Some kind of Lassie power, I hear.
Yes, some kind of Lassie power.
Yeah, Snow is still a Lassie for whatever reason.
No, not still again.
Yes, he unbecame a Lassie, and then in order to try and find a way to help out Sarah, became a Lassie again.
I skipped 13 too, so I didn't know he wasn't one at some point.
Yes. Yeah, no, he along with everyone else is unlassied, but to save her, he goes back into that rabbit hole.
Anyway, so Snow fight. This is a split coming up for Arist. Honestly, not too bad. You want to debuff him with Imperil, D-Shell, Protect, and use an In-Fire Potion, because that's what he's weak to. We're going to throw fires until we're out of ATB. We're going to overclock and throw more until he staggers.
Oh, I forgot the Warrior's Potion.
We want a Warrior's Potion to give us Bravery to make these blitzes hurt a lot more. But that's okay. I think another overclock...
Still plenty of damage. Yeah. Easy.
Maybe one more hit. Yeah,
So that's a
there we
split.
go. No problem. So that is a split for Aris. Very well done on the Snow fight. 5 stars. So after we beat up Snow for a little bit, he stops being sad and he gives us a useless hat. Thank you, Snow, for that useless hat.
Not even picking up the item. Don't need it.
We're not even going to take his useless hat because we got other things to do. We got to go talk to the Moogles. Team Mogs.
Team Mog
Yes.
going for the Moogles. Goodbye.
All right, so the chronostasis is over, so he has to be careful about his time, but
Plenty of time.
Now,
Should be
now I
good.
just really need the encounter to end it.
yes, yeah, now, so now it'll be...
So yeah, the last thing that Aris is going to do today is he's going to walk over to the Moogle City because we need to help our good friend Mog. He is one of the important characters we need to save. And we're going to help Mog by fighting 3 random battles that should hopefully all go in a very similar fashion. Some combination of Imperils, D-Shells, and throwing lots of Fyras.
And one with a lot of blitzes.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to be fighting some Dryads, and there are 3 fights, one with 1, one with 2, and one with 3.
I am not good at these fights.
Yeah,
So-
they're tricky.
One of the reasons timing is really important on this day is that the Moogles only appear at night, and their village is only accessible at night because of these vines that open and close at different times of the day. So if you run out of time tonight and just try to come back in the morning on the next day, because we do have a few extra days to play with, the Moogles just won't be here. You have to wait until, I believe, 6 p.m. at night for them to even spawn.
Sarath pointing out that T-Mog is riding a chocobo, but it's a necessary evil.
I mean, to be
Yeah,
fair,
we need to help Mog, so...
even as a member of Team Chocobo, to be fair, that's not a Chocobo.
True, it is,
Go with them.
it is not. We will get into that a little later. We won't see the cutscene, but we'll mention it.
We won't see the plot point that makes sense, but we'll be sure to make fun of it.
Yes.
This is the 3 Dryad fight. Aris doing a really good job of recognizing that it was not the 2 Dryad fight, immediately overclocking, blitzing them. They're dead. The reason you want to do that is because Dryads have the ability to summon more Dryads. So if you take too long in that 3 Dryad fight, it can suddenly become the 23 Dryad fight.
Oops, okay. He got one. Yep, we have some more. So yeah, that's how they can do it. Luckily though, the reinforcements, I think the HP is dependent on how much the one that summons them, or at least they're not as strong. So
I think they're just flat out weaker, but
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
if they summon for a long time, then they have a lot of HP.
Hmm.
This fight can really turn ugly. The 3-1 if they all get to summon.
yeah, I know the 3-1, if all of them summon, you can face like 9 Dryads.
So here, Eris is picking up the healer's lore. This is one that is written as like an optional item in the route, but it is one that most people take. I believe it just increases the amount of HP you heal, or is that
I actually don't know.
It
Yeah.
increases the potency of healing items.
potency
when you use
healing?
them.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Does that also mean that buffs from items are better? Because then it's really good.
I
think
believe
it's
that's
just
the
the
other
H-
one.
Yeah, I think it's just the healing potency, but I mean the
Oh.
buff items, like the buff potions, do have HP it gives back, so it's just kind of nice for that. And it's a quick pickup, so most runners, I don't think I've seen anyone really skip it.
Yeah, I should not have used the chronostasis. As we can see.
I want to say it's the collector's catalog we pick up later that increases the duration of buff items.
Yes, yes. You would have been incredibly tight though if you hadn't used it. You would
I
only
know,
have
I
like 10
know.
in-game minutes, so it's always that balance of do you do it or do you not?
To be
It's always,
fair,
especially for marathon, better to be safe than sorry.
though, you do always have that extra one, that 1 EP after you fight the Dryads. I
Yeah.
think even before you fight the Dryads, depending on how much you get off
Right.
of. So,
Yeah, but
but
then-
it's better to be safe for sure.
Then you're gonna be stuck with 1 minute waiting for the chronostasis to end.
Yeah. It's better to be safe than sorry, especially with
Especially
regard to the
today.
Moogles. Yeah, because like we said, the Moogles just don't spawn until 6 p.m. and there's no convenient place to rest near the Moogles. So you're gonna have a bad time if you have to come back to them. Meanwhile, it looks like Sephorin is actually progressing rather quickly through Snow's castle. So, I mean, now that that's all said and done, Aris is going to be heading to the absolute worst area of the game.
Yep.
It's bad.
Well, I think Snow's Palace is worth.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't stand those blood elementals. They are the worst in my opinion.
Blood elementals?
The
The ecto puddings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ecto puddings.
Right.
Blood elementals.
No.
Yeah.
Ecto puddings.
Bonds of Satan, basically.
But yeah, Aris is gonna do a little walking. He's gonna pick up some items at a little city here up on the cliff that belongs to followers of Etro who just kind of want everyone to leave them alone until the savior shows up. We are going to go ahead and get 2 Inaro potions and an Infrost potion, and we're actually going to keep one of the Inaro and Infrost potions all the way to the very final boss of the game to help deal with different patterns that boss can have. But we'll use one of them a little later on the final boss of the desert area. After that, it's a long area called the Temple of Chaos, and it's just a lot of walking, a lot of obnoxious platforming, and the most annoying enemy in the game called the Ectoplasm, which has a hitbox that hits 3 screens away from it and is pretty much inescapable if it wants to start a fight with you. You can spawn it.
Yeah, this is why we do it on a day where we can take all we want.
Oh yeah, we have all day today to get into and run from encounters. Which is because there can be up to, I think, 9 or 10 ectoplasm spawns as you go through the temple if every single spawn is one. So, yeah, not fun.
Also, shout outs to this NPC. We mentioned earlier that we don't take the time to help anyone other than our friends, but this guy, you're forced to do his quest. So this is the one guy who gets to move on to the other world along with your friends.
Yeah, his quest is, can you do this platforming for me? I can't do this platforming.
And it is mandatory platforming to get to the temple.
It is. So the big reveal here is that chocobos can't climb ladders, but also that chocobo isn't a chocobo at all. It's Odin, who has taken the form of a chocobo for some reason.
To make sure that he can help out Lightning. It's just adorable.
It is completely unexplained. There's no reason that Odin should be a chocobo.
Look, Odin is just his partner. He just waited for him. Nah, D-Wins, it's not spoilers. We just passed it. It already happened. We just skipped it, because, gotta go fast.
D-Win's, by the way, a great runner of Lightning Returns himself.
Yeah, I feel honored.
Meanwhile, Sephorian is on the snow fight. Let's see if he can get it. He's going to throw the fire res, overclock, keep throwing those fire res. There's the stagger, pops the warrior's potion, and that fight is as good as done. Snow is definitely a fight we want to see both of our runners take care of as quickly as possible, because if you let Snow live with under 50% HP, he'll go into a second form, where he gets massive defenses and the ability to just kind of destroy you. It's not a fun fight if he survives past half health.
Oh, yeah. And unlike these sort of, scripted challenging fights, the next one is, pretty much the biggest joke in the run. And just wait till we get there and you'll see.
Especially if you play the game casually and straight.
It's so satisfying.
It is so
satisfying.
It's my favorite fight in the entirety of the game because it exemplifies the mindset that that we had routing this game, which was we are going to win these fights in, hey look, there's an ectoplasm. We're going to win these fights in 10 seconds or we're not going to win these fights ever.
Yeah, so those are the infamous ecto puddings. They will slap you from, like Sen said, about 3 screens away, and they do not care about your speed run.
Oh yeah, they'll hit you through walls. They'll like hit you when you're 5 feet above them on one of these platforms. They don't care.
They'll attack in the opposite direction and still somehow manage to hit you. It's just, they don't care. So the whole thing in this temple is that if anyone's played 13-2, there's Yule the Seeress, who she is reborn as like the Seeress of Etro. She has her eyes and can see the future, but those visions were slowly killing her. So she died and was reborn over and over again, and now all of those souls of Yule have collected into this one temple full of chaos, and we learned that Yule is the source of chaos. All of those souls getting together but not all having the same desires necessarily, are kind of causing conflict and just destroying the world.
I want to point out real quick to all of our... Wow, the ecto puddings are just being super mean right now to Eris, but I want to point out to all of my fellow 13 runners, hey look, it's Astroprodoflorian. We're just going to walk right by him. We want nothing to do with him. Nobody who's ever played that game wants anything to do with that boss.
They also can spawn in like the platforming area to get towards this temple as well on the way.
I've never
In
seen
some
that
narrow
happen.
hallways, and they can cause some problems. It's pretty much the definition of everything in this game. That is, they can cause some problems.
I will say, this platforming is also like 5 times harder than it looks just because of Lightning's weird momentum in the air.
Yes.
She does not jump like you'd think she'd jump, and it is very easy to accidentally jump a little short. And seriously, Eris, I don't know who you angered today.
Well, I know, because I said better than Snow. I jinxed it.
That's like the 5th ecto pudding spawn I've seen in the temple
Yeah, it's
so
been a
far.
while since I've had so many.
That's rough.
I gotta admit.
Oh, that one luckily far away, though he was trying.
Yeah, he was trying. Alright, do not forget the Aeroga.
Yes,
Yep.
Aeroga. Because we did not get Magnet, we will be picking up an Aeroga spell to use on a boss further along right here. If you have Magnet, you just skip it.
Yeah, luckily, it's literally right on the path, so it costs all of 3 seconds to pick up. But the fight is definitely a lot harder with Aeroga than it is with Magnet.
It just takes way longer. It's not necessarily harder, I'd say.
Yeah, it's mostly just a time drain.
You do have to garb switch guard cancel, which is kind of
true.
annoying.
Yeah, that's true.
You got around the first one, but there was one right behind waiting for you.
You cannot escape the ecto puddings. I think that's ecto pudding spawn 7, by the way. Meanwhile, it looks like Sephorian is just finishing up on that kill Snow Day. Looks like the timing worked out for him well enough where he didn't need an encounter. Just was able to walk out of the Chocobo village and hit 6 a.m. So he will be joining Eris in the Temple of Chaos very shortly. Eris is just about up to Caius right now. Pretty close.
It's such a shame that, like we said, the next boss will melt so quickly because I love the music.
Alright, so Eris is about to walk up to the Caius fight. I'm just gonna go ahead and explain it in advance because it's gonna be over so fast you're not gonna see it. All we're gonna do, we're gonna throw Imperil, we're gonna throw Deprotect. We need to throw both twice to actually stick them on him. We're gonna use a Bravery Potion, and then we're gonna hit the Blitz button. We're gonna hit the Blitz button really hard because his first action is to change into a Commando and summon Bahamut to do Giga Flare. If that hits, you are dead. There is no way around it. So it's not going to hit.
But luckily, this is a day where all of our AP is dedicated just to this. Overclock, and he's gone.
And that's the Caius fight, everyone. Yeah, Caius. Technically, it is possible to survive the opening Giga Flare with an absolute perfect guard, but
Good luck with that.
it's one, the timing is completely nonsensical. It's like a good 5 seconds after the explosion happens. And 2, just kill him before he casts it. Just do that. Easiest strategy.
And this time, we do take the reward for beating Caius. We take his sword, and we'll be using that later.
Yep, we get his sword, Chaos's Revenge. It does big damage.
I did pick it up though, didn't I?
You did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here we're returning back to the desert. We beat the Gurren Gotch, which was the trial set to us by these guys, so we could meet their leader. And as we'll see in just a moment here, it turns out that their leader is Fang from Final Fantasy XIII. She's the leader of these bandits, but for some reason separated from Vanille. And for this area, she's going to hang around with us, and we get a teammate fighting in battle. The Chocobo did fight with us a little bit, but wasn't really used too much. Fang is actually in a fight or two here.
Yeah, because the Chocobo is not in the Dryad.
Now, some of you seeing Fang here might go, so wait, where's Vanille? Like, we've been to all the major areas. We haven't seen Vanille yet. Well, don't worry. Just like in the original Final Fantasy XIII, Vanille is useless, and we won't see her. She's good in the speedrun.
She's implied. she's implied, but yeah. So we do save her, we just don't see it.
We save everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. Even the dead people. Come on.
Yeah, sadly, we don't get to see the cutscene where Lightning makes a sword out of literal friendship.
Yes, if you have not seen the ending to this game, it is just all the power of friendship and light.
It's amazing. The best ending you've ever seen.
And it's about 30 minutes of cutscene. The ending is so long.
So once again, while we're going through the desert, we just want to make sure we're sliding as much as possible. It's as fast as running, doesn't cost any stamina. And we can pretty
How often has a Gorgon opposite fall? Events?
So these ruins here are, they have a particular mechanic with their doors where some are open during odd hours and some are open during even hours. There's one particular door that we need to make it to. I don't remember if it's an even or odd hour that we need, but for normal, you can luckily just escape a fight if you happen to be unlucky enough to make it there at a bad time. Easy, we would sometimes use a chronostasis to try and secure the right time, because otherwise you're standing there for a good 3 minutes waiting for the time to change again.
Well, actually, it's 3 doors. It's odd.
I think it's odd, even odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, they alternate for sure. But it's really not a big deal because, hey, we have all day to do this and get into encounters every single time we need to change.
This one is the first.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is even first.
Well, because
No,
the
it's
odd door
odd.
is also, because you can go out the other one, it's just the same.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, you don't need it per se. It's a shortcut, yeah.
Right. It cuts running around like the entire first floor.
Right.
This area is one of my favorite areas in the game, though, just because of how weird the enemy aggro is. By the way, those statues, you can just jump through them for some reason. That can crash the game, by the way.
Never happened to me.
But it can.
It certainly can, for
I
whatever
didn't know
reason.
that. I did not want to know that.
Jumping into those statues can crash the game. It's very
Sometimes
rare.
they're enemies, sometimes they aren't. So it's probably just some really funky programming.
But yeah, I love this area because there are a lot of NPCs in this area after you open it up a little bit. The entire Desert Bandit gang comes down here, and the enemies have this weird quirk where sometimes they will decide to aggro an NPC that's like 500 miles away, and you'll just see skeletons running out of these tunnels and just run past you.
Don't they aggro Fang?
Possibly.
I know they aggro Fang for sure. I've also seen them just aggro random, like the random, bandits.
This is where we're starting to use those tablets that we've been gathering throughout the entire run. They're put into certain rooms here to just open up that giant glowing golden door that we're about to look at.
It's a very important door.
Sephorian picking up that Aroga drop. Because sadly, no magnet. And because like Sen said, they make the platforming in that temple look easier than it actually is. If you fall in certain rooms, you go all the way down and lose a lot of time. Oh wow, those puddings were nice to you. Just strolled right on by him.
So while Aris is running through the ruins here, he's going to be activating switches to open doors, but he's also going to be picking up 2 crosses, which we saw one earlier. We used it to dispel the whirlwind and fight the Gurungach. We're going to need 2 more of them to do similar things a little bit later. Yeah, we see Sephorian actually dodging some ecto puddings, which is impossible. So very impressive. And I believe Sephorian is just about headed up to the Caius fight. I think one more room.
Yep, there it is now.
Oh no, there it is. It's just right there. And again, we're gonna see the strategy of Imperil, deprotect, hit Caius really, really hard, or
Welcome.
We fight Pirandus demons. The enemies are the bosses in this game, an interesting mechanic, because casually you're intended to play through this game more than once, because obviously you can combat different things on different days. Different bosses, depending on what day you fight them, will be stronger or weaker depending on how far into the 13 days that you are. Most of them just turn into like Snow or Snow Plus or Snow Plus Plus, I think if you're in like the New Game Plus version. But there is one boss in this area here which has an entirely different name. It's either Grendel or Pirandus. With where he falls in the run here, we will be fighting Pirandus.
And this is the second time door, and now I need an encounter badly.
Yeah, because you've still got 20 in-game minutes. Let's see.
There it is.
All right. Yeah, so this is where we're going to use an escape to purposefully open the correct door.
And meanwhile, Sephorian not too far behind, just meeting Fang right there and heading over to the ruins.
I just love how the sand sliding looks in this game, especially in the dress. It's just satisfying. Oh, yep, there was a Kate Sith fighting a random NPC, so they definitely do target on to the poor bandits. If you'll see on Sephorian's screen there's like a giant black hole void chilling out in the desert. It's gone now, but it is over to his left, chasing him right now, actually. That is the game's super boss. Aeronite, or Aeronite, however you say it, he's just hanging out in the desert certain times of day after a certain day. And he's not someone you want to run into.
So Aris, he went down, he explored the ruins. He did pretty well. Now it's time for a good nap. That's exactly what he did. First, he's going to trade one of those seeds to the Seed Hunter. He actually had 2 of them, so he's going to get 800 gold for that. And then he can hand over the Moogle fragment he got from saving Mog to get another piece of Dodge's song.
And then it is time for a nap.
Yeah, just time for a good nap. Sleep until 5 a.m. As you do sometimes, before running back out into the desert to get the last tablet. Now, there's a pretty cool movement trick here. Going to the last tablet, if you find just the right angle, you can start a slide on this hill and ride it all the way into the entrance of the area where the tablet is. But it's pretty tight path you need to take. So we'll see if Eris manages to get the slide. Some intense sliding action.
Well,
Oh,
looking
Not
good.
too bad, not too bad.
Yep.
Yeah, made
Keeping
it
it
pretty
going.
far.
Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, if you're really good, you can keep that slide going like all the way down here and conserve all your stamina. But as long as you get far enough that you have time for your stamina to recharge, it doesn't particularly matter if you get it all the way or not. And yeah, you had plenty of time to make it to the slopes, so that was really good. Very well done.
We do cutscene skip the door openings, right?
Yes,
Okay.
or at least I did. I don't know.
I think there was some debate at one point as to whether it was actually faster to cutscene skip them or not. I'm not sure if anything was ever found as a result of that. I've always skipped them. So Ares is going to get the final tablet here. These first statues aren't enemies, so we're not going to strike those, but he's going to jump over them and hit the second set of statues to end the day.
Yeah, some of the statues, it's hit or miss if it's going to be an enemy, but there are some that are always guaranteed.
Meanwhile, Sephorin moving through the ruins. Lots of really nice little movement tricks you can do in the ruins with the slopes and the piles of sand you can get a slide off. There are a lot of just like little piles of sand on the sides of the room you can touch for just a second to start a slide, and that'll let you refresh your stamina while you're still running at full speed. Seeing Sephorin take a few of those.
You get the brief glimpse of that cutscene there happening. As far as the plot happens, God is showing Lightning images of Sarah, and that's supposed to be the motivation because God has promised her, "Hey, you be my savior, and I will bring Sarah back to you." And so throughout, you get little glimpses of this Sarah image, who talks to you and then disappears to just try and keep Lightning motivated. But Lightning always just feels like something's just a little bit off.
I mean, speaking of Lightning's motivation, so today is a completely new day, and all Lightning's gonna do today is fight a single cactar. She's not really feeling it, one cactar and then go to bed.
Hey, it's a pretty tough cactar.
It
Takes
is
a
a
lot of
pretty
work.
tough cactar, yeah. I mean, we joke, but it's honestly probably one of the more obnoxious fights in this part of the run. Meanwhile, we see a Sephorin fighting a Gurengach in the ruins. Don't think we talked about this when Eris was fighting it, but goes down just as easy as the other one. In fact, even easier because, hey, we have Imperil now. So throw Imperil on it. There's some fires to blow its spines off, and then a couple of blitzes, and we're done. And I believe right after that Gurengach is where we are going to pick up the Collector's Catalog, which is a wonderful little accessory that increases the duration of buff items when we use them on ourselves, which includes Heroes Potions, which is going to be very useful for the last few boss fights we have.
Well, notice something very odd about this cactar. It's got an afro. It's got a Saz afro, to be specific. The cactar. This is the fight where we would be using Magnet if we had it. The Magnet strat, very complicated. You put Magnet on a button, and then you hold the button down until it dies. Unfortunately, no Magnet here. We have to time some Erogas and swap Garbs to guard cancel them, because otherwise you would not have enough ATP to get enough Erogas off.
Yeah, even when we're in overclock, we still want to Garb switch to our our bouncer garb because it has a light guard instead of full guard, which uses less ATB, and that lets us get an additional Aeroga off every cycle. Very important little minor optimization. Another fun side effect of having Magnet is if you cast Magnet on this Cactar, he can't hurt you. His 1,000 needles will get stuck in his hat. I do want to point out, we used a Crux to stop the Whirlwind and fight this Cactar. It is actually possible to skip that Crux and preemptively strike this Cactar for 25% bonus damage. But it is currently TAS only because it requires a very specific enemy spawn.
I never knew that.
It's my one contribution to the speedrun. So yeah, with that done, we're just gonna go to bed. I mean, that was a hard day. I think we can just take a nap.
So the next fight will be incoming, will be that Parandus fight that was mentioned before. It's the last... Yes, it is the last boss fight that we have before the end of the game. Pretty short day. We're just going to pretty much teleport right to it because we've done all the prep work in the previous days.
Meanwhile, Sephorin is taking that cat nap till 5 a.m., getting ready to raid the last tablet himself, as Eris goes back into the ruins to view the last tablet and open the door to our third major boss, Parandus.
Sephorian getting a pretty good super slide himself. Yep, just about the same length.
Yeah, definitely carried it far enough that he's not going to need to stop for stamina. Very well done by both of our runners. That looks trivial, but getting the exact angle where you're steep enough to be sliding, but still moving towards where you want is not easy. So we touch the clock and we go ahead and start the third major boss, Parandus. Parandus looks really intimidating, but honestly, he's kind of a chump. We're going to throw an arrow potion at the start of the fight because he is weak to wind specifically. We're also going to throw a warrior's potion because, hey, brave is good when our main source of damage is going to be blitz. After that, it's just a bunch of fires to stagger him, and then we're going to debuff him. You can't debuff him until he's staggered because he has a magical shield protecting him. And after that, we're just going to blitz him. Lots of blitzes. So there's the stagger that takes down his shield. Now you can see applying the Imperil and applying the deprotect. And from here to just be blitzes.
And down goes Parandus.
Yeah, very nicely done by Aris.
That was okay.
Yeah, there was a little bump, but nice recovery. These fights all go so quickly that it looks like, you know, they're trivial and no big deal, but it actually, even though it is a formula, there is a timing to it that does take some practice. It's not as easy as it looks. If you misclick a button or you waste some ATB, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, there's also a lot of room for optimization. Obviously, perfect hits and perfect guards as much as possible are always going to speed up the fights to the point where you can even skip some steps if you do the opening of the fight completely perfectly in a lot of these battles.
And now with that, we also are going to finish the last major plot point before the end. Is we've collected all of the pieces of Dodge's soul, and we're gonna go and make Saz happy again.
Yep. And after this, we saved all of our friends, and Lightning doesn't really care about anyone else, but we still have a solid 3 days before the end of the world. So all that Aris is going to do for the next 3 days is buy some items and take a nap. Rinse and repeat.
Gonna be time for some resident sleeper. With the in between, we will be buying a couple of items, some heroes potions for the end. But other than that, gotta rest up, look beautiful for the end of the world.
So meanwhile, Sephorian's running up to fight the Cactare. I don't believe that he had Magnet either, so we're going to see some more strats. Definitely can't emphasize how important it is when you're doing strats to make sure that you cast Aroga and then guard swap and light guard with Velvet Bouncer specifically. It's very easy to accidentally guard with your Passion Rouge instead, or maybe just to do it with the dress you're wearing as is. But both of those things are going to eat up too much ATB outside and inside of Overclock respectively, and you're going to lose some cycles. This fight gets really annoying if you run out of Overclocks, because you need to teleport afterwards to get back to town and go to sleep. Otherwise, you have to walk all the way down the hill, and that's like a time lost. The one nice thing about this fight is that perfect guards and perfect attacks mean absolutely nothing, because everything does 1 damage to this Cactare.
Yep, and that's why Magnet is literally just hold down the button to win, as you do lots of 1 damages.
You can hold the button?
Oh yeah,
You can just hold the button down. You don't have to time it.
Oh, interesting.
We're all learning things today.
Did not know that.
Yeah, if you hold down the button, you'll repeat the action, but you'll never perfect time it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it matters.
God damn it! I had a magnet. So salty.
Well, it happens.
Imperil is a cruel, cruel mistress.
Indeed.
Dude, dual nap times. Both streams.
Everyone's just sleeping right now.
Lightning's had enough of this. She's just ready to go to bed.
I like
She's
this
had a hard
game.
time since the beginning of 13. There's been a lot of stuff. It's been a long time. She's old.
Well, but then again, she was sleeping for 500.
True. She got more sleep than others.
I swear my item arrangement looks different in every single.
Yeah, menuing in this game is always super fun because there are a lot of random drops you can get that'll just completely mess up your item order.
Well, I meant just the items, the recovery items.
Yeah, sometimes if you just put things in the wrong spot, they'll like fall
Yeah.
into, or if like you have multiple of the same one, sometimes you won't always click the same one.
Well, while Eris naps off an entire another day, Sephorian is moving on to the Parandus fight, so be ready on that split.
I don't think Parandus does he?
Isn't he one of our splits? I thought he was. If not, then I'm wrong, and that's
No, he
just
is.
a friend for
He
me.
is.
Oh darn! I was correct. Well, we can't have that.
I'm wrong.
So yeah, once again, while Sephorian fights it, Parandus is a kind of a weird fight. Most of our fights with debuffs, but you actually just can't debuff Parandus at the start of the fight. He's got a magical debuff-proof shield on, so instead we're gonna throw a couple of potions, get arrow on our abilities, get bravery from Warrior's Potion, and hit him with Fire as hard as we can to immediately stagger him. Make sure he doesn't cast his bad breath attack. After that, we're free to debuff him, and we can run in and start the blitzes. Looks like he did get a bad breath off there. Unfortunately, when it hits you, it just launches into the sky, so it's a pretty frustrating time loss, but
Still going down without pretty much any hitch.
yeah. I mean, and that's the reason we wait a whole day to fight him. All of our EP spend on and whatever else we could possibly. The best strategy in this game is to not give the bosses a chance to play the game, because if they play the game, you're going to have a bad time. And if I'm reading that correctly, I think that means that Team Mog is now only like 6 or 7 minutes behind Team Choco. Other way around,
yeah.
Team Chocobo is only 6 or 7 minutes behind Team Mog. So
Yes,
we
indeed.
got
The
a
gap
relay
has
again.
closed.
6 minutes and 52 seconds, it looks like. So we got a relay, ladies and gentlemen.
Imperil, the great equalizer.
Yes, plus Sephorian definitely had much better ecto-pudding luck. That does drain a good
Right.
chunk of time as well.
I mean, Sephorian got at least 1 or 2 ecto putting dodges, which are unreal, frankly. You're not supposed to be able to dodge that enemy.
So here we are picking up the ability Decoy, as well as a couple of improved garbs. Decoy is an incredibly important skill for the final fight, and you will see why, especially on PC, though also used in console, coming up.
And after that, we're just going to do some final menuing. We're going to change all of our garb to the Equilibrium Plus version, as well as the other starting garb plus version, just because they have great stats on them. Dark Muse, there we go. Dark Muse also comes with Heavy Slash level 4. Heavy Slash is a very damaging attack that we're going to abuse to take out the final couple of enemy bosses.
He did throw a light slash onto that garb, and that's because he was lucky enough to get a drop that had some beneficial stats to him. He's not ever going to use that light slash, but it will give him just a little bit more attack power whenever using his heavy slashes on that garb.
And with that, Aris is moving into the final day, so only 3 fights remaining before the run is over.
Oh, 4, including Benevelza.
I'm missing one too. I'm only thinking 3.
I'm only
The
thinking
guards.
Because there's the
Guards?
guards, Chimera.
Oh, and the
Oh,
Anubises. The
the
Anubises.
set
No,
of-
no,
the
no,
set
they're
of
called
sets.
set.
Yeah, the set of sets.
Sorry, the recolored Anubises.
Sets.
Another example of Lightning Returns just kind of going with the old Final Fantasy philosophy of, you know what, let's just take that enemy type and let's paint him like blue. There we go, it's a new enemy.
Theming.
So coming up here, this is the guards fight, and though it looks like a pretty boring fight against 2 random NPCs, it's one of the most technical fights in the entire run. This is because these guards will cast an ability called Reinforcements, which calls in 1 extra guard each. And if Aris is able to do this just right, we're not going to see either of these guards get a reinforcement. Reinforcements were had. That's okay. If reinforcements happen, I mean, we have Heavy Slash. We can just bop them on the head.
You'll watch every heavy slash just chunks their HP away. It's they just can't stand up to it. A very standard combo of attacks that we'll be seeing will be like 3 basic attacks followed by a heavy slash. Just because using multiple heavy slash in a row, heavy slash does use a ton of your bar, so it's hard to spam. But then also using it as that last attack just gets you a little bit more oomph while spacing them out.
So after that, we'll be fighting the second major fight here in just a few minutes. We have to fight a Chimera for some reason. So at this point, we see this Chimera, but we're not going to fight it. We're just going to kind of walk away in a cutscene while Noel fights it. He gets to have all the fun. This is, of course, the point of the game and the story where Lightning goes in alone to save the world, but all of her friends show up at just the right time to lend a hand. And by lend a hand, I mean mostly be completely useless.
They're trying, okay? They were all really sad for so long. All in their rooms just crying. Yeah, there's a lot of really aggressive spawns in this area that Aris is in, but usually it's not too hard to get around them.
Yeah, we're not on a time limit anymore either. As soon as you enter the final day, it's just the final day. You have until you're done. So worst case scenario, you can just run the encounter you get down here. There are a lot of side rooms in this final dungeon too. You can get all kinds of cool equipment and accessories, and we don't care about any of that. % run. Just go.
So here's that Chimera fight, and suddenly Fang. So Fang's gonna be joining us. The Chimera strat is probably just one of the most satisfying and funny strats in this entire game. For some reason, if you hit him from behind, it does more damage. So every time it's in the notes, you walk around and you hit him in the bum.
Yeah, all you gotta do, you debuff him, you throw some Blizzaras, you stagger him, and then you hit him in the butt. Boom. Right in the butt. And that kills him.
There's also one more kind of final puzzle in this room or like area we're gonna go in where like if you can go off to all these side rooms and face these challenges, and it takes your broken sword, which you had in the very beginning of the game that got snapped in half, and fixes it. But also, we don't have time for that either. Don't need it.
Yeah, we actually can't beat one of the challenges with our current setup anyway. Even if we wanted to, there is a Chocobo Eater remix called the Earth Eater that we do not have the equipment to fight.
Oh yeah, I don't even think casually I finished those challenges. Some of them are brutal.
Oh, I think I got a better heavy splat.
Ooh.
Nice. So yeah, Aris defeats the set of sets, and we head into the very final area of the game, where we're going to take on the last boss, Bunavelza, the God of Light. But first, as far as the story goes, Bunavelza takes away all of Lightning's friends, as well as I think just about everyone on Earth, because he wants to remake the world in his image. And we've had enough of that. We're gonna go punch him in the face now.
I was gonna say, but Sent, we've been working for Booney this whole time. What happened? Well, God was not always such a good guy.
Well, sorry, he took away all of our friends except Mog. For whatever reason, he let Mog stay. So Mog shows up and is now a shop, and I'm actually curious on what you're gonna buy, Aris. Are you a 2 potions? Are you a 2 Phoenix down?
I am a 1 each.
One of each? Yep, I would do that after a while.
Yeah, so here in the final shop, we have 2 item slots to fill. You could buy X potions, which completely restore your health. You can also buy Phoenix Downs, which lets you revive after dying. You could really go with any combination of X potion and Phoenix Down that you feel comfortable with. The downside of... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Aris.
No, well, I just wanted to mention that I have been having problems with... So don't be surprised if it doesn't happen first try.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
Thanks.
Bunavelza without decoy is definitely a really fun fight.
I've
But,
only managed it once.
the downside of Phoenix Downs is that you lose all of your buffs when you are revived by one, but they can save you from, otherwise inescapable deaths, like if Bunavelza gets off dancing mad or all.
Also, can I be deafened? Or do I have to do that myself?
Yeah, I don't think Sarah's on the channel.
I'm clicking out.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so this fight requires a lot of concentration. Bunavelza is a 4-stage boss fight, and every single one of his stages has the potential to kill you at a moment's notice. So in this first stage, we're going to try and activate the decoy glitch. And what we're going to do is we are going to constantly...
That's not this stage.
Oh, that's not in this... No, you're right.
Nope.
It's not in this stage. I'm
That's stage-
bad. That's second stage.
Yeah.
I did a run last night. I should know this. No, this is the Doom stage, right? Yeah, so we want to throw an Infrost Potion as soon as possible so that the animation of it gets cancelled by Bunavelza casting Doom on us. If that timer runs down, the fight is over. But frankly, that timer should never come anywhere near to run. The first phase is pretty simple. Basically, you just want to keep him debuffed with everything you can debuff him with, and constantly attack him with Blizzaras, heavy slashes, and basic attack. You want to stagger him as fast as possible, and then just overclock and then smack him in the face until he dies. This stage is really dangerous because he buffs himself during this phase, and those buffs can carry over and be very scary.
Yeah, and the two alternating combos are, like I said before, 3 attacks and a heavy slash, or 2 Blizzaras and a heavy slash, always keeping up that damage. Here, he's repeatedly using guard and deep protect and kind of canceling it in order to scoot backwards, and that's because here, he did not get the decoy glitch. So normally you cast decoy, and at 60 FPS, the decoy doll will drop through the floor because reasons.
He's gonna go ahead and just reset the fight. I don't blame him. So when the decoy doll drops through the floor there, it'll still taunt Bunavelza, and he will try to hit it, but most of his attacks will be unable to damage it. He can actually destroy it with a few methods, but as long as you do the fight well, those shouldn't come up too often. The fight without getting the decoy glitch means actually defending against Bunavelza's attacks, and Bunavelza hurts. Bunavelza hurts a lot. Unfortunately, again, we talked about Lightning Returns not having the best performance as a port. And one of the places it rears its ugly head is in this fight, especially while streaming. Sometimes the game isn't keeping a constant 60 FPS, and that means that the decoy will not fall through the floor. So hopefully Aris is able to get it, or is willing to risk the fight without the decoy glitch as he gets the stagger again, and we're just going to see him heavy slash out the first phase. Oof. Looks like it didn't fall to the floor that time either.
All right, he's gonna give it another go. Unfortunately, just with all this like Sen said, the power of streaming to it, it just might be his computer is not keeping it consistent.
Yeah, and again, it's not the sign of like a bad computer or anything. It's just the 13 ports are very strangely optimized, and certain CPUs and GPUs just work a lot better with them than other ones. I'm not sure if he's going to keep trying to use the decoy glitch, see him try and attempt the fight normally, but hopefully it just works for him this time and it won't be an issue either way.
Sounded like he had some practice in it, so hopefully.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Sephorian's actually headed down, I think, to the set of set fights.
Yes, he finished the hit him in the butt, and here's the set of sets.
Yep. So that means he's only about, 3 minutes or so behind. As much as I don't want to see the glitch fail again, if it does, we could have an entirely tied up relay.
All right, back into phase 2. We'll see what happens if he decides to keep going, or possibly give it another retry. But he's definitely running out of retries before things start to get dicey.
Yeah. So phase 1 is a physical-oriented phase. Bunavelza will buff himself and throw his weird scepter scythe thing at you. Phase 2 is entirely magical. Bunavelza... Oh, we got the decoy glitch. Excellent. You can see it fell through the floor. Bunavelza will now basically target that for the rest of the time. Phase 2 is entirely magical. He'll pick an element and just start casting a bunch of spells of it in ascending order until he finishes, and then he'll start channeling Dancing Mad, which you don't want to see finish. You don't want to see start, but you especially don't want to see finish. So Bunavelza can pick any of the 4 elements after he casts Wings of Destruction here, and you really don't want to see him pick Ice. That is by far the worst outcome.
All right, Thunder. That's actually not bad at all.
Thunder's great because we have an arrow potion, and this is why we have an arrow potion. So that if he picks Thunder, we pick Air, and we have his weakness. And a couple of heavy slashes here, a few more attacks, and this phase should be over before Dancing Mad even has a chance to begin.
That an arrow is also fairly essential because if he does choose the Frost stat, we did use a Frost potion at the start of the fight, and we would be either healing him, I think?
We'd be healing him,
yeah, we would be healing him.
It would be very bad.
So this phase can get really dicey the longer it goes on, and this is where the decoy glitch is really good because you'll see he's kind of facing in another direction and attacking not lightning. Because if you get hit by his attacks too much, they hurt, and he's going to constantly be buffing himself, and it's just, the longer it goes, the less likely you are to live.
Yeah, so every time he buffs himself, he'll actually start attacking more. He attacks X plus 1 times, where X is the number of buffs he currently has. So in addition to doing more damage and being stronger, he also hits a lot more. And some of his attacks are very difficult to guard. He can also cast Ultima if this phase goes on too long, and while you can perfect guard Ultima, you really don't want to. He's using Almageist here. We're seeing a little bit of an attempt to perfect guard it, but it turns out he was off to the side anyway. It wasn't a big deal. And it looks like we should get into the Force phase without any trouble. Meanwhile, Sephorian is just starting the first phase. We'll see if he gets the decoy glitch first try.
With phase 4, we cannot debuff him until we get that first stagger off, so he's going to be doing a whole bunch of blizzards and overclocking to try and get that stagger off so we can just annihilate him at the very end.
Yeah, it's very important to save an overclock for this phase because at this stage he uses the highest level magic spells possible that will, for the most part, one-shot you. Hilariously enough, the best thing he can do is cast Heartless Angel, which reduces you to 1 health because it can't kill you. Alright, Seph is moving on to phase 2 here, as we see if Aris can get the stagger. Very nice deprotect canceling there from Seph. And no, does not get it. Is he going to... Looks like he's just going to buff up with the hero potion and go for it. I respect that.
So here we've got the Heartless Angel down to that 1 HP. But he does have an X potion, so he takes that for safety, which is totally fair.
Yeah,
And
I mean...
here we got the stagger.
Like I said, Heartless Angel is by far the best thing you can see because it just, you know, means he can't kill you. Anyway, so time is coming up. He should be able to one-cycle Bunavelza here with heavy slashes as long as he refreshes his buffs. And he just did with the hero potion, so it's looking good. Time is when we see the menu pop up after Bunavelza dies. And...
Time.
That's time.
Alright, looks like Sephorian is finishing up his phase.
Oh no, he started Gaelic Hymn. Yeah, so if you take too long in phase 2, he starts channeling Gaelic Hymn, which ends with either Falling Star or Dancing Mad, depending on whether you stagger break it or not. Both can one-shot you unless you perfect guard them, and while he's channeling Gaelic Hymn, he takes like 10% of the damage he would normally take. So Sephorian just opting to take that restart of the fight instead of trying to deal with the hymn.
I become the goddess of death.
Are our 9 runners in here? You guys are welcome to introduce yourselves. So quiet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Final Fantasy IX. My name is Transquina. And
What's going on? This is Muskie as well. Here to commentate the greatest Final Fantasy game ever made.
we'll be chilling with you all for the next 9+ hours.
All right, we're back to phase 2. Let's see if he gets the decoy glitch. Yes,
Yeah, I didn't-
fell through the floor.
I didn't see what element he got last time. I wonder if it was maybe which is why he was having trouble with DPS check there.
It was ice.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, ice is
that'll do it.
definitely the hardest to deal with because even though you can use your in-arrow potion to make sure your physical attacks and heavy slashes aren't dealing less damage or healing him, you can't cast Blizzard because Blizzard will just outright heal him. This time he gets Fire Spirit, which is absolutely the best spirit because, hey, Blizzard does double damage. We already have in ice. Great. So
And
this
that's nice
should
too.
be a very easy phase too.
If for some reason he were to take a death here, he would have that in arrow potion to ensure he's doing a little bit more damage in future phases too, which is nice.
Yeah, you always want to have an element active because, again, we're using Imperil, so all of his elemental weaknesses are a little bit lower than his physical weaknesses. But yeah, that's phase 2, so we're going to move on to phase 3 here. Again, phase 3, very scary, has access to Ultima, has access to dangerous self-buffs. You need to keep him deprotected and imperiled at all times, and in this phase as fast as possible. Some runners opt for extra overclocks on this phase. They'll skip the overclock in phase 1 and do it here instead. Sephorian just taking the precaution during the Almageist there. You could parry the entire laser if you have good rhythmic timing. Usually he casts it off to the side because of the decoy glitch. You're around the side of him. He's not firing it directly at you. But you always want to just pretend like you're parrying it regardless, because if Almageist hits you, you will die. That is the end of the story there. But it looks like this phase is going pretty well. He's about to get the second stagger in. There we go. Something we didn't mention, we should have mentioned, is that the first hit after you stagger an enemy does double damage. So you always want to make sure that that hit is a heavy slash whenever possible. But here we go. Final form. Ready. Looks like Team Mog's only going to be about 4 minutes ahead or so going into Final Fantasy IX. That's what I like to see. I like to see a tied up relay. A lot of blizzards, a lot of thunders. Gonna swap back to blizzard and clock for even more of them. And that should hopefully stagger him before the end of that. Again, we see Sephorian casting Blizzara in one garb and switching to an offensive garb that isn't used to stagger in order to take some of that ATB costs away. Now we're just gonna see a couple of attacks into a heavy slash over and over, and that should be the end of it. Excellent run by both of our runners. It was super awesome. Guys, good luck with FF9. Good luck to our FF9 runners, and we'll be back in about 9 hours to do the Type 0 run.
Yeah, you'll see Sent and I again real soon. All right, time's coming up.
Yep.
And
Not yet.
time.
Time.
Yeah, so great job, both runners. Definitely closed the gap, so good luck in FF9. I believe in keeping it all a close race all the way through.
Quay.
Hey everyone, so just before we get too stuck into FF9, we are quickly going to refresh the stream just because of broadcasting limits. So we'll be right back. Stay in there.